Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Jake Lyman is in today. Hello, Jacob.
Hello, Jared. How are you?
Outstanding. By the way, need to admit that I have made a big mistake from a radio standpoint. Again, even some of the best, we ain't perfect. I was on DVD at the end, as I usually am, in the transition over to our show. And I did not tease what I should have teased the beginning of this program to be. Because today, I went out to Titans training camp practice, which everybody that was listening to that last segment knows. But I am starting on my biggest positive takeaway from what was, by all accounts, I think, a pretty bad day of practice. So I went to practice. Haven't been to practice until today. I would say consider me out with an injury, an illness, an upper respiratory infection. I was back today. It was not a great practice by any accounts, which we'll get to. But I have heard your complaining, which is of my complaining. Oh, Jared, you're so negative on everything. So I've decided that I am going to start today's program with the one big positive takeaway that I had from practice today. The offensive line of the Tennessee Titans actually looked, you ready for it? Good today in practice. The starting offensive line. The Scarbini backups, number 78, Crenshaw Dixon, whoever the hell that is, I don't care about that. The starting offensive linemen, for the most part, actually looked pretty good. The one-on-one reps, they didn't win them all, but they all looked like NFL players. And this does not get talked about enough, but it should get talked about a lot. And that is the upgrade that the Tennessee Titans are going to have this season with Dan Moore Jr. at left tackle and J.C. Latham at right tackle, as opposed to a 370-pound J.C. Latham at left tackle and Nicholas Petit-Frere, Jake Lyman, a.k.a. PT at right tackle, is going to be massive. And before you tell me that Dan Moore wasn't good with the Steelers, let me just say this. Dan Moore with the Steelers was a whole hell of a lot better than PT was last season. And I also laugh about the fact that I for years have kind of gone against the grain. If I think something, I say it regardless of whether it's popular. Last year, I said J.C. Latham at 346 pounds is not a left tackle. That's a right tackle. And Joe Rexrode was, there's no difference between the two. And I'm like, well, the 5 highest paid left tackles average 315 pounds. The 5 highest paid right tackles weigh 330 pounds. There is a difference. J.C. Latham was 346. He got bigger. Now he's moved to right tackle, and he's slimmed down, so he's around 330. So he's now the prototypical right tackle. Peter Skoronski, who I still would have never picked with the 11th overall pick in the 2023 draft. Peter Skoronski's fat feet seem to have lost a little weight. And I thought he had a very solid day today, especially in the one-on-ones. And you know me. I am a credit where credit is due kind of guy. So I'm telling you, there is a real upgrade with Dan Moore at left tackle. Skoronski looked much better today, much more agile with those fat feet at left guard. Latham looks like a natural as a right tackle. Zeitler got put on his ass a couple times, which I don't like, but I trust Zeitler will be okay. And they don't even have their starting center in there for the past 3 seasons, and really 4, if you count David Quessenberry as kind of this emergency, thank goodness, right tackle in 2021. The Titans have been winging it on the offensive line, especially at right tackle. And this group is not. This group is a real NFL offensive line, a real left tackle, a real right tackle, a real left guard, a real right guard, and again, they'll eventually get their center back. And there was one time where Cam threw a deep ball, and it was kind of like an arm punt out there for Bryce Oliver, but I was watching the protection more than I was watching what was going down the field, and Cam was just standing back there in the pocket, just patting the ball, and I said to myself, I looked at Steve Lehman, and I said, he's got some time back there. And I got to give some credit to Bill Callahan, because this group looks much better, and that is, again, without their starting center, who I'm not really all that convinced is all that good anyways, but hey, when's the last time I got on here on this program and I said good things about the Tennessee Titans offensive line? I told the story last week. On the third day of training camp in 2023, I got in my car and I texted my best friend's dad. And remember, this was the Andre Dillard, Aaron Brewer, Chris Hubbard offensive line. And I got into my car after practice and I texted my best friend's dad and I said, I know it's only 3 days of practice, but I'll tell you, this offensive line's terrible. Well, I went today. And I'm here to tell you that after all those years of watching these horrible offensive lines, the 2025 Tennessee Titans offensive line as constructed, because, again, if there's some injuries, knock on wood, then you're not going to have the solid offensive line I think you may have. But I'm here to tell you, this is not as bad as it has been. This is much better than it has been. And I know what I'm looking for because I've been right in the past. Last year, I told you guys, PT Jalen Duncan, that ain't going to work at right tackle. But Jared, Bill Callahan. And I've said, no. And I was right. The year before that, I got out there to practice, and I'm watching Andre Dillard get worked all the time, and Vrabel's up there holding press conferences about how Dillard's great in the meeting room, and you'll see, and I didn't buy it. I knew Aaron Brewer at 270 pounds was not a starting center in the NFL. And people are like, no, Jared, he's tougher than a $2 steak. I don't care. He sucks. I know what I'm looking for. You know I don't take the cheese. I didn't take the cheese last year, even though Bill Callahan, I did not take the cheese the year before. I did not take the cheese on PT and Brewer as starters for Quessenberry and Saffold. I'm here to tell you, the Titans' offensive line is much improved. And if the Titans' offensive line is better, just by that addition, you're going to win more football games. Drew Bledsoe said this in the Tom Brady docuseries, that when he got into the huddle in 2001, and that was the year that they won the Super Bowl, when he got into the huddle on the first day of training camp, he looked at the offensive line and said, I think I've got a chance. I'm not here to tell you that the Titans have a chance this year because they stink. And again, it's not like the Titans' offensive line went up there against Von Miller in his prime today. It's the Titans, who we know aren't a great pass rushing team. But this will be the best offensive line I believe they've had since Lawan Saffold, Ben Jones, Nate Davis, and Dennis Kelly or David Quessenberry in 2020 or 2021, which is not saying much. I'm not going to put it up there in that class with the 2019 offensive line with Jack Conklin at right tackle, but this is the best offensive line the Titans have had in a long time. And I have been waiting for it. You have been waiting for it. I mean, it's been depressing the last couple of years just flipping on the TV and watching an offensive line that's a complete and total train wreck every single week. And I'm here to tell you that what I've seen, what I saw today, makes me think that, look, this is not going to be a great offensive line. This isn't going to be Brad Hopkins, Bruce Matthews, and that group. And it's probably not even going to be Michael Roos and David Stewart. But it's at least an NFL offensive line. And for years, you have not had that. So that was my big positive takeaway today. This is a real NFL offensive line. They are not winging it at any position, though, again, Lloyd Cushenberry has not been in there, and I am still not completely sold that Lloyd Cushenberry is really all that good. which does bother me about Bill Callahan. But again, if you were to put a real offensive line in front of last year's team, they would have won more games. No doubt about it. If you would have put a real offensive line in front of Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill in 2023, they would have won a lot more games. And you know that, and so do I. So that's my big positive takeaway. I have read your texts and your tweets and you bitch about everything. So I want to start today's program off with what I think is an unrelenting positive take from today's practice. So I hope you're happy with the positive, because that's really all you're going to get today. Because that offensive line is really all I like. That and Joey Sly made his kicks today. Although he missed one, I think. And it was kind of a chip shot. But whatever. He made the big long one at the end of practice. So good for him. So there's your positive. Now, the rest of practice. The negative. Cam Ward. We'll get to that next. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to weigh in. 615-737-1025. My takes from Cam Ward today. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game.
I was talking with TD, and this was probably in the middle of practice. Well, toward the latter part of practice when I said it, but he and I had been standing there watching some of the team drills and in 707. And I turned to him and I just said, man, he's just having a rookie day. That's what he's having. He's having a rookie day. And fortunately, I mean, it's first day of pads. Defense usually typically has the edge in the first day of pads, but there seemed to be some miscommunication with he and his receivers. The timing was off. And I said to you at one point, Willie, I said, and you summed it up well. I was trying to figure out well. I'm like, he just doesn't seem like his throws are. And then you say there's no conviction behind his throws, and I was like, you're right. Like there's not.
It wasn't decisive,
exactly,
and he was way off target on a lot of it.
Okay, there you go. That was Derek Mason today saying, hey, it was a rough day for a rookie quarterback out there. So I did see Cam Ward. I saw a little good, and I saw a lot of bad. And let me throw out the disclaimer there that it's one practice, but it was absolutely, positively not impressive whatsoever. But you want to know what bothered me the most? What bothered me the most watching Cam Ward today was his accuracy. And it's not just one pass that's not accurate. It was today a bunch of throws that were just off. Throws a little too high, throws a little too behind. At times it felt like he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. I mean, there was one throw, I believe it was for Jaquan Jackson, that he threw behind him. It got popped in the air and Gabe Judy Lally picked the pass off. And I turned, and I think I was standing next to Connor and Parker. I tried to say, did that ball get tipped at the line? Because it was, kind of knuckling around after it got this. And now it was just behind him. I mean, Jaquan Jackson couldn't have been more than 5 yards away from Cam Ward when he threw the ball. That's why I assumed it got tipped at the line of scrimmage. It didn't. It was just a bad throw. He threw a ball on the sideline for Bryce Oliver down the field. It was a very nice completion. The problem was he threw the ball out of bounds. It was an incomplete pass. He threw a deep ball for Bryce Oliver that was basically an arm punt. He threw a deep ball for Ridley that when he overshot Ridley, who was open, and after the play, I believe Ridley might have been a little discouraged after that play, and D. Mace told Ridley, hey, nice route. I mean, that's accuracy. And if you're not an accurate passer, that is concerning. Because if you want your quarterback to be Drew Brees, you got to be accurate. And I know that when it comes to accuracy, Josh Allen improved his accuracy, but it's really more often than not, if you're not an accurate passer, you're not going to become an accurate passer. So that was kind of the first thing was I was very concerned by the intermediate accuracy. I was concerned by the short accuracy, and I was concerned by the deep accuracy. Number two, Cam's deep ball stunk today. Again, I told you about the one he threw for Bryce Oliver that might as well have been a punt. He missed Ridley on a deep ball. Again, couldn't keep it in bounds with Bryce Oliver. And don't shoot the messenger on this one, but when it comes to this lack of accuracy with Cam Ward, you know what those deep passes started to remind me of? They started to remind me of Blake Bortles when he was coming out of UCF. And I remember that a lot because I really dug in on Blake Bortles before the 2014 draft because Teddy Bridgewater, I was on the radio in Louisville, and Teddy Bridgewater was coming out in the same draft. And the two teams both played that year in the American Conference. And it was a thrilling game that went right down to the wire. You know, it was a last team has the ball kind of game. UCF beat Louisville, and they ended up in the Fiesta Bowl, and Louisville ended up in the Russell Athletic Bowl. But big picture, I'm watching Blake Bortles at UCF. And I'm like, this guy's big and strong, and he's athletic, and he's got a big arm. But this guy is just, he'll miss a guy by 5 yards. I don't think this guy has any control of the ball when he throws it. That's what I was seeing today with Cam Ward. I'm like, this guy is off on every throw. It is up, it is down, it is Very, very little in-rhythm passing today from Cam Ward. Accuracy. That is a concern. The third thing with Cam was I thought he turned the football over way too much. I already went on the one about the Judy Lally interception, which was a throw behind Jaquan Jackson. Again, accuracy. Xavier Woods had a one that TD blamed on Chig. I'm sure Chig was at fault because, again, you know me, I don't trust Chig, and it wouldn't surprise me if Chig left his quarterback out to dry. We've learned through 3 years you can't count on Chig, so if Cam Ward's going to count on Chig, he's going to learn the hard way. You can't do that. But then immediately threw another interception to Darrell Baker. I mean, if you're going to be a rookie quarterback, you got to take care of the ball. So went out to practice today. The quarterback was not accurate. He was not accurate short. He was not accurate intermediate. He was not accurate deep. The best throws that he made of the day were incompletions because he threw the ball out of bounds. And he turned the football over 3 times today. That's not good. And there is no other way to slice it. And I don't know what the Titan Twitter reaction is going to be to this. I don't know what I called the fan media yesterday, the Fedia. I don't know what the Fedia reaction is going to be. You know, are they just going to say, oh, it was just one day. That's all it was. Oh, Cam, he's fine. You know it, Cam. He's the best. He's the greatest. He's Mahomes. But he was not good. He was not good today. It was ugly. And you can make whatever excuses you want. Again, that's your choice, not mine. But I know that if what I saw today in practice is what happens in Denver in week 1, and instead of Darrell Baker Jr. and Gabe Judy Lally, it's Patrick Surtain II. And instead of Arden Key coming off the edge, it's Nick Bonito and Zach Allen and those boys in Denver on a silent count. It's going to be a 3-4 interception game. And I've learned this about the NFL. I'm running a poll right now on Twitter because I think some of you people are just absolutely crazy, in which I asked, who would you rather have, Cam Ward or Caleb Williams? And right now, 71% of the people say they'd rather have Cam Ward than Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams turned the football over 6 times last season in 17 games. If Cam Ward has the performance that he had today in practice at Denver, he is going to throw 4 or 5 interceptions. Why? Because the first couple of interceptions are going to get you down by 14 points. Then Cam's going to be throwing against a pass rush that's going to be pinning its ears back coming after him because they're down by 14 and 21 points, and now he's going to try to throw you back in the game, and he's going to throw another couple of interceptions. Caleb threw 6 interceptions on the year, and you guys think he stinks. That's half for an entire football season in real games. That is half the amount of interceptions double the amount of interceptions Cam Ward threw today. And I don't want to hear the excuses. I don't want to hear the excuse that, well, you know, that was Chig's fault. Well, question, are they getting another tight end before week 1? Because if they're not, he better figure it out. He better figure out, I can't throw Chig the ball because he won't be where he's supposed to be. So make whatever excuses you want to make. Say whatever you want. Say, I'm a hater, whatever. I don't care. It was awful today, and the accuracy that I saw, the accuracy, or really the lack thereof that I saw, reminded me of Blake Bortles. That's what it reminded me of. Now, Blake is bigger than Cam. And again, Cam, and he didn't do a lot of this today, but that kind of throw on the run, you know, kind of baseball, sidearm, Mahomes, this kind of stuff. Like, Bortles can't do that. But at the same time, what I saw out of Cam today was a lot more Blake Bortles than it was Patrick Mahomes. And I know Louis Riddick has told you he's Mahomes, so you think he is, but whew, it was ugly today. And it was ugly from an accuracy standpoint, and accuracy is usually something that is pretty steady day to day. No, it's not very often where it's like, man, I was not accurate last week, but this week I'm Peyton Manning. I don't know about that. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number. We'll give you a reaction on that. Plus, Derek, he said something about Cam. He said something about Cam today that I wasn't necessarily looking at because I was kind of more focused on the offensive line, so I'm going to take his word for it. But if what D. May said is the case when it comes to Cam, this is a big issue for where a lot of you think Cam is or where you want him to be. We will get to that coming up next. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number. It's Stillman & Company, 1025 The Game.
So it seemed like there was a concerted effort to push the ball down the field by all means. And there were times where Cam was off, whether it be underthrown or overthrown. Now, he made some good throws in the midst of all of that too, but it seemed like he was half a tick slow at times. And it doesn't seem, again, rookie day, they need to do better, but it doesn't seem like it seems like he still was in college mode where he was a little late. He was late on things, and things were not clicking fast for him. It's like he was reading everything just a tad bit too slow on several situations where I thought he should have got to the backside quicker. But today just seemed like he was processing all of what they were doing up front. He was doing that, and what it was doing, it was slowing him down in his progression. He has to get better at that.
D. Mace earlier today, again, he said it, not me. He said, look, I think Cam Ward's processing was too slow. He's got to hurry up, get to the backside. What did Derek say? He thought his processing was in quote-unquote college mode. Derek Mason said that, not me. Derek Mason of the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame. Derek Mason, former NFL All-Pro, not me. He said that. I was watching the offensive line more than I was watching Cam process. He was watching Cam process. So when Derek says that about Cam's processing speed, that it's in college mode and that he's a tick behind, and it tells me two things. Number one, I think Cam needs a lot of the live bullet reps in the preseason games, not just the preseason practices, not just the one against Tampa Bay and the two against Atlanta, and do what they did last year where after the Seattle practices, which were god-awful, Callahan said, we got a lot of good work in, let's call it a day. No. I think Cam needs to practice against the Buccaneers, and then Cam needs to go out and he needs to play against the Buccaneers. And I think Cam needs to practice against the Falcons, and then I think Cam needs to go out and play against the Falcons. Not just the practices, he needs game reps. Because, again, if he's moving slow, let's give him an opportunity, probably against backups from Tampa Bay and backups from Atlanta. Let's give him an opportunity to get used to the speed of the game. Because clearly with the pads on and him looking down at the rush, that is taking away from his ability to operate as a quarterback. So that's first thing. He needs the reps. Number two, if this is still a problem in 3 weeks, then Brian Callahan has got to have the scrotum to sit him on the bench. And Brandon Allen has to go in there. And Callahan has to be prepared to go to the owner to say, hey, look, Cam is not processing fast enough. And if we stick him out there on the road against Denver, if we stick him out there against Jared Verse and the LA Rams, he might end up in the hospital or he might end up throwing 6 interceptions. So what we need to do is we need to play Brandon Allen. Then he's got to do it. If he's got to go up there and answer all the questions from the media about when's Cam going to play? Why is Cam sitting the bench? What's wrong with Cam? When's Cam going to? Then he's got to do it. Because the last thing you want to do is you do not want to put a quarterback out there before the quarterback is ready. And if he cannot process at game speed and your former all-pro wide receiver is telling you, he did not process today at game speed. If he can't process, he's not ready. And it's okay, by the way, to not be ready. Patrick Mahomes was not ready right away. That's okay. Steve McNair was not ready right away. That's okay. The guy that drafted McNair and was general manager when they got to the Super Bowl told me, hey, we picked him and we told everybody he is not ready and he is not going to play right away. The toothpaste isn't out of the tube. But that processing thing, I mean, that's a real issue. I was talking to somebody today on the sideline who said, you know, if this team is so bad next year that they get the number 1 pick, do you just draft the best wide receiver possible to go with Cam? Or do you reevaluate the quarterback position? And that is a really loaded question. But I was thinking about David Carr with the Texans. No, Corey Curtis. He covered David Carr when he was the number 1 overall pick out of Fresno State to the Houston Texans as an expansion team. And he'll tell you, David Carr had talent. Like real talent as the number 1 overall pick. But he just got sacked too many times and was on a bad team. And all of a sudden they drafted him Andre Johnson. Andre Johnson's a Hall of Fame wide receiver. But the damage had already been done as far as David Carr was concerned. They put him out there before he was ready. They put him out there before they were ready. And here's one thing I'm not going to do. I'm not going to make assumptions. So I said, hey, Cam needs live bullet reps in the preseason games, which means if I was in charge, then he would get live bullet reps in the preseason games. That would be the first thing. The second thing is there's no assumption to be made there one way or another. I mean, he's going to play. Like I'm going to tell him, hey, I'm going to tell him, I'm I'm going to tell my offensive line because I'm not putting Cam behind a second-team offensive line out there in the preseason. So I'm telling him, and I'm telling Dan Moore and Skoronski and Latham and Zeitler, so guys, you're going to play in the preseason. You're going to play in the practices and work your ass off, and then you're going to go out there and you're going to play in the preseason games because Cam's going to play in the preseason games. Same with Calvin Ridley. The assumption I'm not going to make is assuming that this will go away in 3 weeks. It might. I mean, in 3 weeks with 3 preseason games under his belt, probably 2, probably won't play in that last preseason game. With 2 preseason games under his belt, maybe he will speed up. Maybe he will, like Derek said, instead of being a tick behind, he'll be able to get to the backside quickly. He won't be worried about the rush because his offensive line is improved. But I'm not going to assume that today. That's the one thing that I just cannot do. And I know a lot of people will do it. And a lot of people will say, hey, Cam's going to improve, Jared. We got to get him the reps. That's what he needs. I'm telling you, if Cam is not processing quickly enough, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be Mariota all over again. And you don't want that. I'm already worried about the guy's accuracy. If I got to worry about processing and accuracy, he's not ready to play in the NFL. And that's okay. But what is not okay, in my opinion, is making the assumption that, oh, Jared, it was just one day of practice. He'll be fine. Oh, Jared, you don't understand. Oh, Jared, he's got 3 weeks to go until we'd have to make that decision anyways. Oh, Jared, Brandon Allen sucks, so this shouldn't even be a discussion. I'm not making those assumptions. I'm not doing that. Again, you can get mad at me all you want. I started the show off on a positive foot, talking about the offensive line, which is improved. And I'm just telling you what D. May said, not me. I'm not making this up. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. One text says, does not matter how bad Cam Ward is this year because he's a new quarterback. People will pay good money to watch him. And that is how the owner thinks. I don't think the owner thinks like that. Like, I don't know how much money you think the Titans make or don't make. We all saw the national revenue money that the Green Bay Packers got. It's like $460 million or something like that. So then there's how much money you make from selling tickets, which varies team to team, and your marketing deals and things like that. But I think Amy knows when it comes to the real expense she has, which is the new stadium, the PSLs are important. Putting Cam out there week 1 and watching him throw 4 interceptions against a top 10 defense is not going to do the PSL sales any favor. I don't think Amy drafted a quarterback to sell tickets at the old Nissan Stadium for 2 years. I think that if Amy was so concerned about selling tickets, Mike Borgonzi and Chad Brinker would not have gotten up there and would not have said, hey, fans, be patient with us. It's going to take a while. We just want to see some improvement. I think they're saying that because they know, like, hey, this is going to be rough, folks. So strap in and hopefully, and I believe this, like, obviously I'm a Titan fan. Like, I'll stay with the Titans through the process. That's what they're trying to say. Stay with us through this pain that we're about to feel. Now, I'm going to stay with them, but I know not everybody will. That's what I think the owner's thinking. Not, well, let's just put Cam out there so that people will come. This is not a barnstorming tour. This is not, even though it's the entertainment business, this is the NFL. This is not some dog and pony show where you need to put out some circus freak in order to get people to show up. One texter says, I think it's okay for Cam to make mistakes and have rough practices if the Titans fans and coaches are willing to admit if Cam's not ready, that Cam is not ready. But because the Titans are more worried about what the fans think instead of how a professional football team, what a professional football team should do to win, I am concerned because I am expecting him to be rushed out there. I agree. And there was something Brian Callahan said today when it comes to Cam that I heard and I thought, oh, brother. I thought, uh-oh, this is concerning. That I will get to next. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. I'm a little surprised by the lack of pushback in the text line. I was expecting there to be like, you're just a hater. And instead, there's a lot of people, I think, that are kind of the mindset that, hey, maybe Cam's not ready. And that's a good thing to be willing to accept. Hey, it's going to take time. Maybe he's not ready. Maybe they should put him on a bench. 1025 The Game and Souls for Souls have teamed up for a back-to-school fundraiser. Souls for the 615 to provide new shoes for kids experiencing homelessness in Nashville. Help a child in Middle Tennessee step into the new school year with confidence by donating $20 for a new pair of athletic shoes. For more information and to donate, visit thegamenational.com/shoes. Souls for the 615 is sponsored by Mesero in 12 South. Go check them out for handcrafted cocktails, bold plates, great happy hour, and elevated hospitality.
Young quarterbacks join teams that aren't very good and are drafting high about them potentially sitting, waiting, developing. When you take the guy first overall, it's not really much of a question. But what is it about Cam that makes you confident if things get ugly, if the situation is really rough for him in the season, that his development won't be stunted, he'll be able to handle it anyways?
Yeah, playing quarterback in the NFL, I don't think there's any substitutes of playing quarterback. There's so many things they learn when they play the game that you can't necessarily simulate and teach. That part of being in the fire is what helps quarterbacks get better faster. So I've always been a big believer in guys playing. That's how they improve. And so his demeanor gives me a ton of confidence that he can handle a rough spot or two. Because look, it's the reality of quarterback play in the league and being a young player. Like, there's going to be ups and downs. It happens. But you see his demeanor, his heart rate never changes. He doesn't flinch when it comes to a mistake or two, and he just goes right back and does it again. And I think that's the makeup you have to have as an NFL quarterback, because every quarterback in the league throws interceptions. Every quarterback in the league gets sacked. Every quarterback in the league loses games. And so you have to battle through those moments, and the mindset and the makeup of the person is really what separates guys, and being able to handle those things. So Cam has shown thus far that he's up to that task, and there's still things to come and still things he's going to have to deal with, but pleased with his ability to handle it so far.
There you go. That was Brian Callahan, and that doesn't sound like a coach who's open to sitting Cam Ward. It's like, I think the way you get better in this league is you get better by playing. Okay, well, Patrick Mahomes got better by sitting. Do you know more than Andy Reid, coach? This is a fair question. It takes me back to what Mike Borgonzi said when he first got the job and he went to the Senior Bowl, and he was asked on NFL radio by Pat Kerwin, what did you learn from the Mahomes experience? Here's what Borgonzi said all the way back in, I believe this was February, about what he learned from the Mahomes experience, taking that forward.
What did you learn during the research of Pat Mahomes, followed by the acquisition of Pat Mahomes, sitting him for basically a year outside the last game of the year, and just the development of the player? I know I'm good friends with Brad Childress. He was there then.
Yeah.
And I just, I think those are the things that help all of us become better at what we want to do. Just a little bit on the Mahomes journey as you saw it.
Yeah, you have to have a plan. I think that's the biggest thing when you draft one of these guys, and we certainly had a plan in Kansas City. We were blessed to have Alex Smith there at the time, and he kind of took him under his wing. But there was temptations there to play him early on because, he's just the physical talent that he has. But I think it's important as an organization to be aligned and having a plan for that quarterback when you bring him in. And some of these guys are ready to play right away, but you have to have a plan coming in and evaluate them through OTAs and training camp to see if they're ready to play.
Okay. He told you, hey, there's got to be a plan in place. And it feels like with Cam, unless I'm wrong about this, and Borgonzi and Brinker are watching practice and they're going back to Callahan saying, whoa now. It feels like the plan is we're just going to stick Cam out there no matter what. And again, it wasn't me who said Cam was processing slow today at practice. It was D. Mace. It wasn't me who said that he was in college mode today. It was D. Mace. And somebody tweeted me and said, yeah, they should bench their rookie quarterback because he can't fully read NFL defenses in July. And I'm like, I think you miss what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, what if he's not reading them by September? Then you play Brandon Allen. And it's like, well, guy says, well, you put him out there and you learn. Let him develop and learn. The guy replied to me on Twitter, you act like he should be Mahomes week one. No wonder people take you seriously. Again, I don't think he's going to be Mahomes. That's just me. But the Titans are, if you want him to be Mahomes, you people are telling me I'm not allowed to treat him like Mahomes. Mahomes sat on the bench because he wasn't ready. So you guys think you're smarter than Andy Reid? You guys think Brian Callahan is smarter than Andy Reid? you guys think he's Mahomes, but then you are just offended at the idea that we even consider doing what they did for Mahomes. One texter says, don't you think we need to pump the brakes? Today was the first day of padded practices. Let's wait until after training camp to determine if he is ready or not. I agree. But what I'm saying is, if what today was is what Cam Ward is in 3 weeks, then I'm not putting him out there. I am not ruining him. That is hey, if this is what happens, this is what I'm going to do. What I'm not going to do is make the assumption that Cam will figure it out, so don't worry about having a plan B. That's what the Titans did at right tackle last year. How'd it work out for them? I remember the Titans played a game against the Texans 2 years ago, 2023. Will Levis threw a terrible interception. If you remember, the Texans had pretty much their entire team hurt. Case Keenum was playing quarterback. Mike Vrabel walked out with the Bum Phillips hat on. And in the game, Levis threw a horrendous interception. It was a ball where he was rolling to his left, and DeAndre Hopkins and Traylon Burks were covered by two defensive backs. Burks was running open down the field, and both defensive backs stayed with DeAndre Hopkins. And Levis forced the ball to Hopkins, even though if he had thrown it to Burks, and if Burks would have caught it, which is no sure thing, but if Burks would have caught it, it would have been a touchdown. And I kept bringing that up, and I kept saying, when Levis enters year 2, if the game slows down for him, and that instance happens again, the hope will be that because the game is slowed down, Levis doesn't panic and just try to throw the ball to DeAndre Hopkins again, but Levis says, hey, I've got time. Let me look at what's happening down the field. Oh, there's Burks all by himself. Let me throw the ball for a touchdown. That's development. But what I couldn't promise you is that the game's going to slow down for him, and he's going to be able to do that. And as we learned, the game didn't slow down for Levis, and he wasn't able to process that. Assumptions are very dangerous. The assumption that, hey, we'll put Cam out there, he'll figure it out. That is a very dangerous assumption. So I agree. Hey, it's the first padded practice, and tomorrow there's another practice. And then after that, there are more practices, and then there's preseason games, and there's joint practices, and then there's all those things. But I am just telling you, if what I saw today, which is all I can go off of, if what I saw today is where Cam Ward is, for the most part, in a couple of weeks, you're going to ruin him by putting him out there. And again, if you want to do the Mahomes thing, then you have to treat him like Mahomes. One texter says they don't have a plan. They're just going to throw him out there. I know. Like, I know. Borgonzi gets the job. You know, if you're gonna draft the quarterback, you got to have a plan in order to be able to develop the quarterback. Okay, what's your plan? We don't have one. That is what it feels like. So one texter says, how many interceptions did Caleb Williams throw in his first padded practice? So I pulled up an article. This is from NBC5 in Chicago. Josh Schrock, their Bears insider, says Bears training camp observations. Caleb Williams' late flash of brilliance defines first padded practice. This is July 26th of 2024. So apparently, the Bears put on the pads for the first time in day 6 of training camp, and the defense pushed the offense around. Most of Friday's 2-hour practice saw Caleb Williams getting sacked or firing passes to his check down. However, the rookie quarterback finished the day with a display that illustrates why there is so much excitement around the start of the new era of Bears football. Let's see if it says like stats and how he played and everything else. It was a rickety first day in pads for Williams in the offense, but the rookie quarterback demonstrated the ability to elevate and thrive in imperfect circumstances. I will say this. I do not see any notion of interception in this article, so I'm going to guess 0. But more importantly, when they say, hey, Williams showed the ability to elevate and thrive in imperfect circumstances in his first padded practice, I did not see that today in Cam Ward's practice. That's just me. The Bears' offensive line had 5 false starts that day. That's a lot of negative points in the Pee Wee program for Brian Callahan. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to weigh in. 615-737-1025 here on the program. Speaking of D. Mace. So D. Mace said something after the first day of practice that not everybody was happy to hear. And then D. Mace went out to practice today. And what D. Mace said, I will echo. And it is a very big concern. And it's not the quarterback's fault. Doesn't really have much to do with the quarterback. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. My first day today out there on the practice field after getting over an upper respiratory infection. I will tell you, last week, I don't think I would have made it. I mean, I was barely making it through the show. You know, I mean, even Connor was telling me, like, yeah, man, you sound much better today than you did yesterday, which was a sign that it didn't sound very good. I would not have made it out there in the heat today. It's very, very hot, but it was very fun to be back out there on the practice field. And the pads were on. And the Titans just kind of went through with practice. Defense got the better of the offense. Cam Ward threw 3 interceptions. Cam Ward not very good, not very accurate today. I think I've been very clear in that. So, one thing that I am going to harp on, Derek Mason after the first day of practice. And again, this was last week when D-Mace, I did the transition with the midday show, and D-Mace was like, oh, I was expecting you out there. And I'm like, dude, I am literally blowing my nose during breaks. There's no way I would have been able to go out there to practice today. You people, the media people, you wouldn't have wanted me out there. I would have got everybody sick. But D-Mace was like, for the first day of practice, there just wasn't a lot of energy out there. And I heard that, and I'm like, oh, my God, this is Derek Mason, who is saying not a lot of energy at the first day of practice. If anybody would know, it's Derek Mason. So today I was out there, and D-Mace turned to me, and he was like, I know I got on them last week about low energy the first day of practice, but that felt low energy today. And I know that, over there in Titanland, they weren't overly happy with the idea of the fact that the first day of practice was considered low energy. Say, hey, it's our ramp up period. Hey, we're going slowly. Well, that was a week ago. The ramp up period is over. The pads are on. You're throwing the ball down the field. And again, D-Mace is looking at the energy in practice. And he and Willie today talked about it. They felt like there was a lot to be desired. Here's what they said on the midday show.
I did think there was a little bit of a lack of pep, tempo, and energy. And it's got nothing to do with what they're doing at practice. It's how they're doing it. Did you see that?
Unfortunately, I said this before, first day of practice, and it seemed to have had some people scratching their heads like, what does he mean? The practice was, it was a good practice. So when I'm looking at practice, I may be looking at it from a different sort of vantage than someone else, or a different type of mentality or whatnot than somebody else. Because
when it comes to D-Mace, and he's like, I might be looking at this through a different lens than everybody else. Don't we want to look through it through Derek Mason's lens? The guy who had 8 1,000-yard receiving seasons. The guy who set an NFL record for all-purpose yards in a season. The guy who got inducted into the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame a week ago. When it comes to, hey, how was the energy at practice today? Who knows more, Bob from accounting or Derek freaking Mason? I think we all know. So when you say you're looking at it through a different lens, Derek, we want to look at it through your lens. Continue.
When I'm looking at practice, I may be looking at it from a different sort of vantage than someone else, or a different type of mentality or whatnot than somebody else, because there was no energy the first day of practice. And today, there was not much energy there today.
There was not much energy out there today. Willie Donick, who has covered the Titans since the day they moved here and has been to Titans practice for 30 years, and Derek Mason, who played 15 years in the NFL and was a multi-time Pro Bowler, saying there's not a lot of energy out there. And I'm going to translate it for you what they were saying. They lollygagged out there today on the practice field. And as somebody who was there at practice, I don't disagree. The practice felt very bland. It felt very boring. It felt very going through the motions. But the one thing that stood out to me, because I wasn't really thinking about the quote unquote practice energy until Derek brought it up to me on the field. But at one point they split up where the offense, skill players, defense, they went 7-on-7, and the offensive and defensive lines went 1-on-1. And most people at a training camp practice would go towards the 7-on-7s because, you know, hey, it's Cam Ward, it's Calvin Ridley, it's Jarvis Brownlee, it's, you know, kind of the names, Tony Pollard. Whereas I'm looking at the fat guys, because for the last couple of years, it's been the fat guys that have kept you back. And so I'm watching the offensive and defensive lines on the other side. And, you know, they blow the period dead and the guys go run over there. And so they're all running over there and they split up offense and defense and they get it all lined up and the coaches are telling them what to do. And at some point I look up at the clock and I'm like, are we going to go? Like, hurry your asses up. Let's go. You know, sometimes in practice, I'm usually the one that's like, man, I wish they kind of slow down so I can put these notes in my phone as to what's. Instead, I'm sitting here at practice. I'm like, hurry up. Let's go. And so I hear that from D-Mace. And I hear that from Willie. And I think about my own experience out there, again, where it just kind of felt very bland and boring. And the experience I had watching the 7-on, again, let's go. Let's go, offense and defensive lines. Let's go. And then after practice was over, I'm listening to Sebastian Joseph Day. I'm driving home and I'm listening to Sebastian Joseph Day on with Chase and Joe. And he's like, man, it was a good practice out there today. And I'm like, what? Did we watch the same practice? Again, like when it comes to energy, I got D Mace over here telling me that, intensity wasn't good enough. And I've got the Titans players sitting there saying, man, that was a good practice today. Man, that was a hard practice today. And so I'll ask you all, which one do you believe? And then it hit me. I don't know if the Titans as a collective group, and it starts with Callahan, but I don't know if they know what a good, energetic, positive practice is. I can flip on the radio and listen to a host I've never heard of before, and I can give it 5 minutes. And after 5 minutes, if I am listening to the host's opinion, and I'm like, well, I think that's a terrible opinion. I don't think that player sucks, or I think that player sucks, whatever it may be, then I know that host knows how to host a radio program. Most of the time, I'll flip on somebody I've never heard of. They have no idea how to host a radio program, and I'm not really listening to their opinions, but I'm sitting there in the car, and I'm like, stop wasting time. Get to the take. Let's go. But those guys in those cities, they don't know that they stink. They just don't know what good is. And I'm convinced when it comes to the Titans and it comes to high energy at practice, they don't know what good is. Derek Mason knows what good is. He knows, like, hey, practice, they should be celebrating. Practice, they should be loud. Practice, they should be. And it reminded me of something 2 years ago in practice in the bubble. One-on-ones, receivers versus DBs in the end zone. Ryan Tannehill threw a ball in the corner for DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins went up and made, I think he was against Trey Avery. And DeAndre Hopkins went up and made a great catch right in front of me. And DeAndre came down with the ball and he got right up and he tossed the ball into the equipment guy. And Vrabel, who's watching it, it's like, celebrate it. And DeAndre Hopkins was like, I don't need to celebrate it. I do this all the time. And Vrabel's like, celebrate it with your teammates. Vrabel's trying to get the energy up. He's like, hey, let's go. Let's get excited. That was a great play. Let's go. I never once sat there during a Mike Vrabel practice and was like, man, these guys need to hurry the drill up. Let's go. Today I did. I don't ever remember having discussions during Mike Vrabel practices about, was there good energy there or was there not? But again, with all the things that I feel like Mike Vrabel doesn't know, I don't think Mike Vrabel knows how to put together a coaching staff. I think he lucked out on Arthur Smith. At the same time, I know Mike Vrabel knows how to get the most out of his team in a practice. These are 2 practices D. Mace has gone to. 2 practices he's walked away, and he's been like, I don't like the energy out there on the practice field. And today Willie co-signed. He was out there. I was out there, and I will co-sign. And I'm just convinced D. Mace knows what good looks like out on the practice field, knows what energy looks like out on the practice field. And maybe this coaching staff, who loves to pat everybody on the ass all the time, doesn't. And Derek said they should have started practice over again today. Callahan's never going to do that. Callahan let Will Levis last year against the Seahawks throw an interception on one play in a 2-minute drill and said, "Good job, guys. Go hit the shower." Maybe he just doesn't know what good is. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number. We'll get to your phones. A lot of people want to weigh in. 615-737-1025 as to what was not a very good day of practice. We continue along. Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game. And let me tell all the fine folks out there, tune in for player interviews and the latest updates on training camp as the Titans prepare for the 2025-2026 season. Coverage of training camp is presented by Messero and 12 South and by Parman Energy Group.
You had mentioned the daily development for Cameron Ward. What's the daily development like for you? Just as a quarterback coach, so to speak. I know obviously the head coach, but I mean, just
Are you talking about quarterback play?
Yeah, for you, daily development, working with Cam Ward. Like, what are some of the things that are different now as opposed to when we first got out here?
Well, we're just the volume of what we're seeing. So the difference between like his spring is the install process is a little slower. It's kind of one install a day, and then you have days in between. And now you come to training camp and you rip off like 9 straight installs. So every day there's more coming. There's more looks from the defense, and it's coming at a more rapid pace. And so you have to pick it up. It's now all being condensed, and we're sort of in a race against every other team in the league to get all of our stuff down. And the biggest thing to me is just the operation versus our defense, with the amount of pressures we see, the handling of the protections. So again, the third downs are a big part of it. That process every day is every look, every defensive pressure, every time we get a chance to coach off those things is a huge part of the development. We can't get enough of it.
Okay, that was Brian Callahan, and he said we can't get enough of it. So then I expect to see Cam in the preseason games, because that's where you're going to get more of these real live reps, etc. But again, it was a bad practice for the Titans. D. Mason, Willie were like, man, the energy was down today at practice. It was a bad practice for Cam Ward, 3 interceptions. It was a bad practice. Now, if they have a bad practice tomorrow, that's going to be a massive red flag. Like, that is going to be something worth watching. Let's go to your phones, which are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Drew is up next here on the program. Drew, thank you for calling and thank you for waiting. Go ahead, Drew.
I appreciate it. I was just curious because Greg Cosell was there today, and he said the complete opposite of what you're saying. And I'm just confused of how we're seeing 2 different things.
Well, Greg Cosell, I was a little surprised by this. Thank you for the call, Drew. I have no idea what Greg Cosell's take of practice was. Greg Cosell, I was stunned when I got to practice today. And Jake, back me up, because this was not on the grid, but I'm going to share it anyways. Because there was nothing there about Greg Cosell.
Nope.
When I got there, Greg Cosell, Callahan was having his press conference. Greg Cosell was wearing a Titans shirt and a Titans hat. And he was in like the coaches' huddles, and he was like in the drills, and he was like a coach today out there at Titans practice. I've never seen anything like that before. I mean, I was stunned. Like, it's one thing for Jim Wyatt, who works for the Titans, to wear a Titan visor. But it's another thing for a guy who works for NFL Films and covers the whole league to be wearing team-issued gear out there at practice and to be going into the huddles and things like that as a media guy. I've never seen that before. I had to ask Buck. I was like, Buck, does Greg Cosell work for the Titans now? Like, if they hired him to be a film analyst for the Titans, I've never seen that. I thought that was so unprofessional. Unless Greg Cosell is getting paid by the Tennessee Titans to be a films analyst for them, then fine. But I've never seen that. Somebody who is not employed by the team at practice in full team gear. I mean, Floyd Reese was the team's general manager, would later be inducted into their Hall of Fame, and he didn't wear team gear out to practice. So pardon me if I have a hard time hearing what Greg Cosell has to say after he was rocking all team gear today. I walked up to the podium and I see Cosell. I was standing next to Chase, and Cosell was to my right. And I see this guy wearing Titans stuff. And I see the Titans hat, and it's like a fresh out of the equipment room Titans hat. And it's a fresh out of the equipment room shirt. And I looked at him, and I looked at Chase, and I'm like, is that Greg Cosell? because it looks like Greg Cosell, but Greg Cosell would never, I would expect Greg Cosell would never wear team gear like that. Well, I guess I was wrong. So again, I'll take that with a huge grain of salt. Eli from Smyrna says Buck said he had free Titans gear because they gave it to him for free. Yeah, see, normally somebody in the media, look, and I'm not against free gear. Make no mistake about that. But like, you're not going to wear it like when you're doing your job. Like I get on Corey Curtis and I bust his chops when he does the preseason games and he wears the Titans polo. And I'm just busting his chops. It's not like I would expect Corey to not wear the team polo. Corey Curtis is on the team's broadcast. He is being paid when he is on the sideline. And it's like, let's go down to the sidelines. And here's Corey Curtis. Corey, well, I caught up with Brian Callahan at halftime, and he said the team's looking great. Like he's working in a capacity for the Titans. When you are working in a capacity for the Titans, you wear Titan gear. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have an issue with that. But is Greg Cosell working in capacity for the Titans right now? I'm sorry. I saw that today, and I was like, man, that was shocking and rather embarrassing, if I may. I'm a huge Predators fan, huge Preds fan. Season ticket holder. I root for the team. I want them to win. Same way I want the Titans to win. I do not wear Preds gear at Preds games. And that's not a knock on I got plenty of Preds gear at my house. I've got plenty of Preds gear from the Preds. I've bought plenty of Preds gear in my life. But I just don't want to be parading around the arena in Preds gear. I'm not on the team. I got a arm's length. Maybe I'll wear the gear if I have to in order to get on that Sweden trip. But other than that, I could not get over. I'm sorry. I could not get over that. Jake, you do Vandy games, right?
Yes, sir.
When you do a Vandy game, what do you wear?
I wear a suit for home games, but I wear Vandy stuff on the road.
Okay. When you are working in a media capacity, not for Vanderbilt, do you wear the home stuff of the team that you're covering that day?
No, if I do any like SEC Network games for Vandy baseball or something, I have to wear logoless stuff. So can't wear anything Vanderbilt.
See? Whatever. Somebody said, Jared, your jealousy and tears are coming through loud and clear. I don't have, if I wanted, I don't know if I called the Titans today and I said, hey, I'd like an easy peasy job where I can just do 2 hours a day and I can just, host a Titan show and go Titans and everything else. And I want you to pay me $150,000 a year. I want you to pay me $200,000 a year. If I went to the Titans and said that, I have no idea what they would say. None. I have no interest in doing that, but I have no idea if they would say, yes, let's get the biggest thorn in our side off the radio and let's do that. I have no idea what they would say, but I think if I wanted to work for the Titans, I think I probably could. I'm not interested. And I'll tell you why. Because the most excited I get when it comes to doing my job is the fact that if I've got an opinion about the Titans or the Predators or whatever, if I've got an opinion, I get to share it and they hear it. They may not like it. They may not agree with it. They may not in it. But you know what? If I think the linebackers coach sucks and I get on here and say it, they hear it. And that excites me. Like, I love the fact that on a Monday after the Titans lose, I get on here and bitch about what's wrong with the team. And I get to push back about what I get wrong. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number. Greg Cosell said it was a good practice. Give me a break. Did he actually say it was a good practice? Oh, my goodness gracious. 615-737-1025. I'm contemplating apologizing to Will Levis. I really am. And you know me. I'm not the biggest apology guy out there. But if I feel like I'm wrong, I will apologize. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Can you explain the timing? How does the timing fit for him, fit for you?
Yeah, we knew after the season, rest and rehab was the recommendation from our staff and from the second opinion staff that he sought information on. And there was an option that, they recommended that he push through the offseason, which he did, had a really good offseason. And if he felt discomfort, that he would proceed with the surgery. And that's what he did.
Okay, so Will Levis is probably under the knife as we speak, as he is having the shoulder surgery. So Will Levis put out a picture yesterday on Instagram. Did you see this, Jake?
I did. It was gross.
So Levis put out a picture on Instagram. You know Levis, he loves taking pictures of himself. So Levis put out a picture, and it was a picture of his shoulder, and it was like a bone sticking up. And it said, last night with this little guy, with the implication being that he's having surgery tomorrow and it's going to fix his shoulder. Now, let me say this. I was very critical of Will Levis 2 weeks ago when it came out that Will Levis was going to have season-ending shoulder surgery and just happened to decide the day before camp to get the surgery and to not compete for the backup job, which I don't think he would have won. But instead of playing this year, I'm going to hang it up, get the surgery because I knew I wasn't going to play. So let me make sure that I get right. Again, why not do it earlier in the year? Why not wait? And the Titans had made it obvious that when it came to the Levis surgery, that they weren't very happy with the fact that Levis decided to get the surgery. Again, the Titans said, hey, he got a second opinion. He and his agents and his team, they decided to have the surgery. We didn't think he should have the surgery. Again, Mike Borgonzi was like, our doctors and the second opinion guys said, hey, rest it up and let's rehab it up. And then after that, we'll see if it gets better. And then if not, then we'll have the surgery, but it should get better with rest and rehab. So Levis takes that picture yesterday and he posts it. And I sent it to my doctor friend. And my doctor friend is a very high-end sports doctor. There are a lot of athletes that make Nashville their home. And while he doesn't work for a team, he does see those specific athletes. Again, not every single athlete that makes Nashville their home, but a lot of them. High-end guys, NFL, Major League Baseball, etc. So I sent it to him. The one that told me that there's no way Snead would have been in a brace if it was just a quad. And I said, but Jared, the Titans said it's just a quad. He's like, yeah, no. And I said, what do you make of this Levis shoulder picture? And he said to me, he goes, oh, that's bad. He's like, that is a grade 3 shoulder separation. And I posted the picture on Twitter that he sent me, which shows what the normal shoulder looks like, then what a grade 1 shoulder separation looks like, where there's just a little tiny separation, then grade 2, where you start to see the shoulder coming up a little bit at the AC joint, and then grade 3, where the AC joint is completely detached. That's what Levis had. And I said to the doctor, I go, do I owe Levis an apology for calling him a quitter because he waited until the day before training camp to get the surgery? And the doctor said to me, did this injury just happen? I said, no, it happened last October. He took a week off because they had the bye. He took a week off, came back, took 3 weeks off, came back, finished the season, and then apparently rest and rehab, went through the offseason program, etc. The doctor, after looking at the picture that Levis took, said, I am surprised he tried to go through camp in the first place, and I'm shocked he didn't just do the surgery in the offseason. The idea that the Titans were going to try to rehab this was somewhat was somewhat ignorant. It makes me squirm thinking about him trying to throw with a grade 3 shoulder separation. I said, are you sure that's grade 3? They told everybody at the time, and I think it was Paul that reported this, they told everyone at the time that it was an AC joint. He said, did you look at him throw in the offseason? Did it look normal? That's what a grade 3 separation is. It is the AC joint that is separated. And I actually did watch Levis in OTAs, and I thought Levis actually looked pretty good. The doctor told me they don't do surgeries on grade 1 or grade 2. Often with grade 3, there's labor damage as well. So I said to the doctor, I go, so do I owe Levis an apology? The doctor said, I don't know why he would wait this long to have it. The timing is weird. Does he need surgery? Absolutely. But he should not have waited this long either. So it's up to you if you want to offer up Levis the apology. So now I have to ask the question, do I owe Will Levis an apology? It does feel to me like I owe Will Levis an apology. I'm not sure if I'm ready to give it yet, but it does seem to me like I owe him the apology. Caroline had an issue with Levis posting the photo yesterday. She's like, this is so Will Levis being like, see, guys, I'm really hurt. See, look at this nub popping out of my neck, which again is where the AC joint is separated and it's the shoulder that's popping up. And I said to Caroline, I go, I understand it probably is a little bit of like a affirmation seeking of, hey, I'm getting the surgery, but look at my shoulder. This is why I'm getting the surgery. And it's in kind of a coy way of doing it instead of just saying, hey guys, wish me luck for my surgery tomorrow. This is why I'm getting the surgery. It's more of a last night with this little guy. See what I'm dealing with in my shoulder? So I don't have a problem with that because clearly the team is not going to defend Levis. So if I'm Levis And I got a doctor telling me he should have had surgery right away. The doctor is shocked that he waited this long to have the surgery, that he's probably got labrum damage too. I'm thinking to myself, well, if the team is not going to have my back on this, well, I want to show this picture to everybody so everybody knows, like, hey, my shoulder is legitimately screwed up. So I do not have a problem with Levis posting the photo of him with the shoulder. This is another incident where I am starting to look at the Titans medical staff. And I know that Todd Torricelli, who was in charge of their medical staff for a long time, he retired at the end of the season. And there's somebody new, I guess, in there. I don't know. And I know that some of the Titans doctors, they're very good people. But at some point, this discussion has to happen. When the Titans were getting all those injuries, Mike Vrabel kind of nipped it in the bud by saying, oh, when I played and I had an injury, I never thought, man, that trainer sucks. And it was kind of Vrabel's way of saying, I'm not going to dog on the training staff. Don't ask, don't. But after 8 seasons in a row where everybody gets hurt, isn't it time to start wondering, like, what's up with this medical staff? After they approve the physical on Julio Jones or approve the physical on L'Jarius Sneed's knees? Again, the way Kaharski said this all went down was other teams would talk to the Chiefs' doctors. So the Titans medical staff would talk to the Chiefs' medical staff. And the Vikings, who reportedly had a better offer on the table for L'Jarius Sneed, their medical staff talked to the talked to the Chiefs' medical staff, and they were like, oh, no, thank you. So the Titans medical staff talked to the Chiefs' medical staff. And the Titans medical staff came back and I guess said, well, if you want to do it, you can do it on L'Jarius Sneed. Where was the Titans medical staff on Caleb Farley? Like, were they sitting there saying, like, I don't know, John, if you do this, it's better. Oh, no, his back, he's fine. Again, I don't know. But I've got a doctor telling me, like, they told Will Levis to rehab it. They told Will Levis to throw through it. And again, Mike Morganzi still made it obvious in that press conference they did to start the season. It's like, yeah, we thought he could rest and rehab his way, but apparently not so much. He felt differently. It kind of made it feel like they were pointing the finger at Levis. And I think it now answers the question for sure as to why the Titans didn't try to trade Levis in the offseason. Every team that gets a rookie quarterback usually trades the guy they had away. Mac Jones got traded when the Patriots drafted Drake May, or before when they knew they were going to. Sam Howell got traded when the Commanders drafted Jaden Daniels. Justin Fields got traded when the Chicago Bears drafted Caleb Williams. That youngish guy usually kind of gets pushed back. Then the Titans said no interest in trading Levis. Chad Brinker told Jim Wyatt on Titan Stationery, no interest. After the draft, they said, did you have any conversations about trading Will? They said no. And they said that it was about competition. I think the reason they didn't have any interest in trading Levis is because if they traded Levis, let's use the Dolphins, who signed Zach Wilson to be their backup quarterback. Let's say the Titans, instead of paying Zach Wilson, they trade Will Levis to the Dolphins. Will Levis is going to show up in Miami to consummate the trade. They're going to have a physical, and they're going to see that thing popping out, and they're going to say, yeah, flunk him on the physical. Let's move on. Send him back to Tennessee. That's why they didn't even try to trade him. So I'm starting to wonder again, like, should we be having a discussion about the Titans medical staff? Because Levis put that photo out there clearly to tell people, like, hey, I'm not making this up. I need this surgery. And the doctor I talked to took one look at that picture and said, that is a grade 3 shoulder separation. They do not do surgery on grade 1 and 2. And he's like, it makes me squirm thinking about Levis trying to throw the football with a grade 3 shoulder separation. So again, two separate topics here. Two separate paths here. Number one, do I owe Levis an apology because I called him selfish and I called him a quitter because he wasn't willing to battle through camp, because I assumed that Levis was essentially ducking reality that he was going to be behind Brandon Allen. And number two, when do we get to have the discussion on the Titans and the medical team? So I'm going to answer the first thing. I think I do owe Levis an apology. I mean, if he's got a grade 3 shoulder separation, and the doctor I talked to said he shouldn't have even been throwing the ball with a grade 3 shoulder separation, then I apologize for calling him a quitter and calling him selfish. That was a little over the top. And in fairness to Levis, the Titans are going in a different direction with Cam Ward. Everybody knows that. If Levis doesn't have this surgery and that grade 3 shoulder separation stays, he'll probably never pass a physical until he has the shoulder surgery. So he should have the surgery. And this year, Brandon Allen's the backup quarterback. You have the surgery now. You miss all of next season, but then he comes back for the last year of his rookie contract. He can be the backup to Cam Ward. And as he is the backup to Cam Ward, then he can go hit free agency and go be somebody else's backup. Or the Titans could entertain a trade next year, which they had no interest in doing this year because, once again, Levis was hurt and probably would have failed the physical. So that's first thing. I do think I owe Levis an apology. So I'm willing to give it. Again, I'm a credit where credit is due guy. The second part to me is the medical staff. And again, I can just go off of what the doctor told me, which is it made the doctor squirm thinking about Levis trying to throw the ball with a grade 3 shoulder separation. Add that to the list. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 1025. 106 for the game.
if I'm wrong, I will admit that I'm wrong. If Will Levis' camp call up here and say, no, you're dead wrong, then that I would have to accept that. But this doesn't look to me like an injury that should have sidelined him for the whole season.
It's convenient.
Exactly.
It's convenient.
Absolutely.
Because he can use it to his advantage.
Absolutely.
You may be going down this road, Derek, but I do want to ask this question. Does any part of you believe that Levis quit on the Titans by electing to have surgery now?
I don't think he necessarily, I don't want to say that, because when you saw, even though he didn't play well, he competed. That's one thing Will Levis did. He competed. He didn't play well, but he never stopped competing while he was out there. It just didn't go his way. So I'm not going to say he made a business decision. That's just what he made.
Okay, that was D-Mace when the Levis news was announced, and that's what I thought too. I thought Levis was like, I'm not going to be the starter. I may not even be the backup. Screw it. I'll get my surgery and take my time and rehab me. And I think Chad Withrow said it best. In The Last Dance, Scottie Pippen waited until the beginning of the season to have foot surgery because he was mad that the Bulls weren't giving him a good contract. He was like, I'm not going to F up my summer. And it's like, it makes sense. Scottie wants to go on vacation. Don't want to be on crutches. Fine. Let the Bulls deal with it. And then Levis put out the picture, which I sent to a doctor who said that's a grade 3 shoulder separation. He goes, it makes me squirm thinking about Levis even trying to throw the ball with that injury. He's like, who told him to rest and rehab? I'm like, apparently the Titans did, because that's what Mike Borgonzi said their doctor said. And the doctor said to me, and again, this is somebody who high-end athletes. And he's like, they did what? I'm like, yeah. So I apologize to Will Levis for calling him selfish and a quitter when this is not only the best for his business, but also, I mean, if it's a grade 3 shoulder strain and the doctor says he shouldn't even be throwing on it, why didn't he get the surgery right at the beginning of the offseason? And boy, a lot of texts are rolling in on this at 615-737-1025. One texter goes, why do the Titans let Levis continue to go ahead with his shoulder looking like that? Do they not get physicals? One texter says, all I know is that all the things we're talking about are the state of the team when they are super down. The Titans organization has to be the most incompetent in all of sports. I say good on Levis for exposing the team. One texter says the staff owes him an apology, not the media. Report the facts that you have. Again, the way that the scribes were making it sound, PK and I forget who else, but they were making it sound like the Titans were disappointed that Levis chose to get this surgery. And then again, the doctor told me, he's like, yo, I don't know who told him to not get the surgery, but that's crazy. It's Robbie Stanley texted me. He said, remember that there were NFL teams that said when it came to drafting Caleb Farley in the first round, they looked at his medicals and they said, oh, yeah, no. I mean, I remember Ian Rappaport had a report prior to the draft about Caleb Farley's back. I think it was the sciatica one where Joe called it sciatica, if you remember. But so I remember reading the Ian Rappaport report on the air about Caleb Farley's back. And you have to believe that if this is before the draft and this is coming out about what the medical report says, it's from one of two sources. It's either from Farley's own people who are trying to put it out there that, no, we're okay, nothing to see here, or a team trying to tank his draft stock because they want to get him. And so I believe that this was from Rosenhaus and his group trying to tell teams, he's okay, people. And I read the report on the air, and I said to Caroline, and I said to Ian, I go, okay, after that, would you draft him? Yes or no? Let's go around the room. And all three of us said no. And the Titans drafted him anyways. If I were general manager, and I know that Nick Saban holds this against his doctors in Miami for flunking Drew Brees on the physical, and that's why they couldn't sign Drew Brees, and they ended up with Dante Culpepper, and that's why Nick Saban went back to college. I know that Nick Saban holds it against his doctors. I got it. But if I was general manager and the doctors told me, like, hey, man, I know you think you need a corner and L'Jarius Sneed's your guy, but those knees are bad, then we're not making the trade. If my doctors are looking at Will Levis and they're like, that's a grade 3 shoulder separation, we don't even know how he's throwing the ball, then I'm like, have the surgery. T-Bone says, Jared, you owe Levis an apology, but so do I, because I was right there with you. Again, I know Caroline got mad that Levis put out that picture because it's like, see, guys, I really am hurt. But if nobody believes that you're actually hurt and you've got the evidence, the only person who's fighting for you is you. Go ahead, put it out there. I got no problem with Levis putting it out there. One texter says, at this point, anyone that is been involved with the Titans in the past needs to be fired. When it comes to the medical staff, and I say this with all due respect because there's a lot of good people over there that work there. John Takahashi, he's not part of the problem. He's part of the solution. But at some point, we got to stop having the Julio Joneses and the L'Jarius Sneeds and we got to stop having these moments where again, doctors that do this privately just look at one picture and say, who the hell told him to rest and rehab? Eli from Smyrna says, I still don't get why, if the injury is that bad, he would go to a passing camp all summer. So he was working all summer throwing the ball. And like I said, the doctor told me, he's like, it makes me squirm thinking about Levis trying to throw with that shoulder injury. Matt says, why did L'Jarius Sneed take so long to get his knee cleaned up? Seems like he could have done that earlier too. So the same doctor that told me about the Levis thing, about the grade 3 shoulder separation, and I put the chart out there on Twitter. So TD reported, I think on Locker Cleanout Day, that L'Jarius Sneed said that he had a bone marrow PRP injection into the quad 6 weeks ago, and that's why he was in a brace. And that doctor said to me, you wouldn't be in a brace if you had an injection in your quad. I said, really? He goes, no. He said, and you certainly wouldn't be in a brace 6 weeks after an injection for your quad. I said, so what do you think happened? He said, I think they performed an oat surgery on L'Jarius Sneed. And the oats surgery is where they take, cartilage from somewhere else in your body and they replace crappy knee cartilage with that cartilage in your body. And he thinks that that's why Sneed was in a brace, because Sneed had the knee surgery when he was telling everybody, it was just a PRP injection. He actually had a knee surgery at that point in time. My guess is Sneed's knees are so bad that it didn't heal the way they thought it was healing, and then he had a cleanup. My guess is Sneed had a surgery in December or January on the knee and had another one in May. That's just my opinion. But I don't think it was why did Sneed wait until May? Weston Hermitage says, if your doctor thinks surgery should have already been done, I'm not upset with Levis, but I will now second guess every injury the Titans have from here on out. With the Sneed thing and the Levis thing, I don't know how this medical staff can be trusted. That's how I feel. This is bad. And I think a lot of people are like, man, this is pretty crazy. They saw the picture with Levis and they're like, oh, wow. Is it really this bad? So not going to hold it against Levis. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. I was out at practice today. And there's one thing when it comes to all the things, all the chatter, all the national media hype, the vibe this team feels, that I'm not sure I felt when I was out there today at practice. We'll get to that coming up next here on Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. And you know what? Let's give something away. Be caller 5 at 615-737-1025, and you'll win a pair of tickets to see Rod Stewart at Ascend Amphitheater on Thursday, August 14th. Good luck there. Tune into ESPN 94.9 The Fan as the Sounds take on Scranton Wilkes-Barre. Pre-game begins at 5:20. First pitch at 5:35. Coverage also available on the Game Nashville app and at theGameNashville.com. Sounds baseball on ESPN 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks and by Family Leisure. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Titans practice, first padded practice in the books today. And you heard in Jake's update, it was not good. 3 interceptions today for Cam Ward. That's the first part. The second part, D. Mace, Willie, they talked about it at length. So it's not just me, but a real lack of energy out there on the football field on the day of padded practice. There's a lack of energy. I mean, the Titans have a whole DJ booth set up out there at practice, and there's a lack of energy. So I understand it's just one day of practice, but I was out there today, and this is all I can go off of. So I've heard the national media chatter when it comes to the vibe that they feel about the Titans, especially with the addition of Cam Ward. And the one thing we've heard repeatedly is just how the vibe around this team has just totally changed. We heard it from Ian Rappaport, who was at practice on Saturday. We've heard it from Daniel Jeremiah. We've heard it people tweeting out saying, man, I'll tell you, I talked to the Titans coaches, and they just said the vibe around this team, when it comes to Cam Ward, it's different. It's just different. It's a positive. It's great. It's a new era. It's a feeling. Calvin Ridley said to TD after practice on Saturday, man, when we drafted him, I'm telling you, it was just a different feeling. I was so excited. I was there today, and I didn't feel it. Not one iota did I feel as if there was some sort of paradigm shift involving the Tennessee Titans that, man, now this feels like a real football team. In fact, I went up to Derek, and I said to him at the beginning of practice, I said, this just feels different. And Derek was like, What does he mean by that? They were talking about it on the midday show. And as I cleared it up, I said, Vrabel's not the coach anymore. Robbie Bourne's not the PR director anymore. Haas, the equipment guy, he's not out there anymore. It's just all different. All the players are different. You know, Henry's not out there. Tannehill's not out there. Byard's not out there anymore. It just feels different. It feels like if a different franchise were to have picked up and started. It just feels so sterile. And I know that, again, the Titans are in the business of wanting to hype people up, I guess, although the general manager and the president of football operations went out of their way last week, I think, to fairly try to set fan expectations. It's funny, I was talking with somebody in the hierarchy of the Titans who basically today was like, hey, man, I'm just looking for improvement this season. You know, we're just looking for improvement. I mean, they are trying to kind of tamp it down a little bit, at least on that side of it. But then the coaches sit there and tell everybody, oh, my God, the vibes in the building, it's so different with Cam Ward here. Again, I didn't feel 1 ounce of that today at practice. I didn't feel any sense of accomplishment, any sense of achievement. I didn't feel any sense of confidence. I mean, I didn't even feel, even though the defense dominated today, I didn't even feel like the defense knew that they dominated today. You know, when the Titans were dominating in training camp 2 years ago, Kevin Byard's up there talking about, we think we'd be the best defense in the league. Christian Fulton saying things like, I've never been with a defense that was this dominant in training camp in my life. They went to Minnesota and they kicked that ass, that defensive line. I mean, it felt like I didn't feel that today. And it takes me to probably what my biggest issue with Brian Callahan in the 20 months he's been the head coach of the Titans is, which is too much sunshine pumping. Callahan's telling all these guys, hey, here's a new vibe here. Cam Ward's changing the culture. It's changing the way we feel. It's tectonic and its movements. And then they're going to their podcasts and they're going to their shows and their YouTube channels and they're just repeating what the coach told them. And some of the things they're saying, I mean, they're like verbatim the same. I mean, we did this yesterday. We played a Jeff Darlington cut and an Ian Rappaport cut, And the talk about the vibes in the building were almost the exact same. Can we get the Darlington cut, Jake, from yesterday? Because I want to highlight this, that, again, I don't know how much Jeff Darlington's been there or not, but I was there today. I didn't feel anything special. I didn't feel any oozing of anything that was all that big of a deal. And it reminds me because today somebody called and said, well, Greg Cosell has the exact opposite take of practice as you. Well, if his take today at practice was that Cam Ward was good, I don't know how to help you. I mean, and again, D. Mason and Willie were the ones that are like, man, there's no energy here. It's not just me. But then there was Greg Cosell rocking all the Titan gear today. So if that's what the Titans are doing, buttering up the national media, here, take some Titans gear, take a Titans hat, take a Titans shirt, so that they'll go off and say things on TV. I mean, that might make you feel better on July 29th, but that's not going to matter in September. This is what Darlington said yesterday on ESPN.
I hate the idea of what I'm about to say in some ways, because C.J. Stroud and Jaden Daniels set a standard for rookie quarterbacks that I don't think we should have.
Great point.
But Cam Ward reminds me in a lot of ways of Jaden Daniels. I know I shouldn't say that. I say it from the standpoint that he's walking in. I was around the Titans. I was in that building. I was with the coaches. I was with Cam Ward. This dude is going to get the respect of the veterans in a way that Jaden Daniels does. He's got all of the intangibles and the pieces. It's so hard to be on South Park, Scott, because he just.
It's like, how can you not have the respect? Will Levis was your quarterback last year. Anything's better than that.
Cam Warren's got it.
Okay. What did Darlington say? I spent some time I was around the coaches, and oh man, I'll tell you, he's got it. It's like Jaden Daniels. Dude, I was out of practice today. It was not like Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels last year, as a rookie, threw 9 interceptions for the season. Cam Ward threw 3 interceptions today at practice. I mean, Jaden Daniels, like, again, that's the crazy stuff that people didn't say it. Like, hey, the coach told me, man, I mean, Cam, he works so hard. It's just a vibe in here. I mean, let me tell you, this building, this facility, this team, it's all the same sunshine they pumped last year. And why does Callahan feel the need to pump sunshine when he pumped it last year and he barely hung on to his job? Because it doesn't matter if you pump the sunshine. It matters if you win or lose. Sometimes I think Callahan, and I said this last week, we've always talked about no-nonsense coaches. Nick Saban is a no-nonsense coach. I am convinced Brian Callahan is an all-nonsense coach. Well, let's pump up the media so that they'll say nice things about us, so that they'll say we have a good team that will help us out 0% come football season. It reminded me of something last year. You know, again, because you heard that Bart Scott cut where he's like, well, you had Will Levis last year. I mean, come on now. Last year, after a couple of games, TD talked to DeAndre Hopkins, and TD was like, what makes you believe in Levis still? And DeAndre Hopkins was like, well, I know football. And I mean, Will Levis is a great quarterback. And I'm like, oh, so that's the card we're playing now? I know football? Because they were saying all the same things about Levis last year they're saying about Cam Ward right now. Remember when Callahan went on Busted with the Boys and was like, Will Levis, everything you want in a quarterback. He's a big reason why I took the job. And then 3 weeks into the year, it was obvious everything they said this offseason, bull crap. Again, I keep hearing Ian Rappaport and Jeff Darlington and Pat McAfee and everybody else in the national media say, oh my God, the vibes they have surrounding this football, the vibes. They're immaculate. This team, I'll tell you, Cam Ward, he's changed the culture. Jaden Daniels. I was out of practice today. Did not feel that way. 615-737-1025, which is the phone number. There is one good thing. It was a bad practice day for Cam Ward. It was a bad practice overall for the Titans. There is one good thing, and I think it's very good for Cam Ward. We'll get to that coming up next. 615-737-1025 and your phones. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 1025. What is the game?
First day with pads, what's it like to finally get that physical?
Yeah, it feels good. It feels good. The game is just different than when we're in jerseys and helmets, so it's a good feeling. It's real football. Definitely a huge adjustment, but it feels good to be back.
Coach Callahan used the word cohesion, really looking for cohesion up front. Can you start to see that build even more?
Yeah, I think it's still early. That'll build slowly. I think it doesn't just happen. Don't just show up and we're a cohesive unit. That's going to take a lot of reps in camp, and this is only day one in pads, so that's going to take some time and through the preseason and into the first few weeks.
Peter Skoronski, that fat-footed guard, I got to say, it looks like his feet have lost some weight. I mean, I actually thought Skoronski today had a nice little day. So today's practice was bad. Cam Ward threw 3 interceptions, low energy, bad. It was bad. First day of practice, low energy. Or excuse me, first day of pads, low energy. Cam Ward's accuracy, bad. Cam Ward's decision-making, as D-May said, not me, he did, slow. He thought he was processing in college mode. Can't do that. Got to go faster. This is the NFL. But there is some good news for Cam Ward, at least from what I saw at practice today, And that is this offensive line is much better than the offensive line that the Titans have had the last couple of years. When the Titans paid Dan Moore all that money, there were a lot of people that were like, what in the world are the Titans doing? Why are they paying this guy this kind of money? And I said, when there's only one or two starting tackles out there, they're going to get more money on the free agent market than they're worth because you have to overpay everybody else who would be interested in these players. So you had to overpay everybody to get Dan Moore. Well, Jared, the Steelers drafted tackles in the first round each of the last 2 years because they didn't want Dan Moore playing left tackle. Yeah, well, guess what? They drafted Broderick Jones in the first round in 2023, and they drafted Talise Fuaga, I believe, in the first round. It was Fuaga, right, Jake, that the Steelers drafted?
Which year? This year?
Last year.
Last year. Who did they draft?
I want to say it was Fuaga. No, it was Troy Fautanu.
Yes, Fautanu.
They drafted Troy Fautanu, TF. They drafted Troy Fautanu and they drafted Broderick Jones. And guess what? In 2023, 17 games, their starter was Dan Moore. In 2024, 17 games, their starter was Dan Moore. They made the playoffs, which means that you can make the playoffs with Dan Moore as your starting left tackle. That is better than what they were doing last year with PT. It's a joke. And I watched Dan Moore today. Dan Moore looks like a starting player in the NFL. Skoronski looks like a starting player in the NFL. Latham looks like a starting right tackle in the NFL, which is where he should have been from day one. Now, Kevin Zeitler got his ass busted a couple of times by Jeffrey Simmons out there, which is not overly encouraging. But you know what? I'll take the track record with Zeitler. I'll say it'll be okay. If that offensive line is better, then you've got a much better chance than you had last year. And I cannot begin to tell you how much better of a chance you have just on that one facet alone. Now, they still need Cushenberry to get back because he's the center, and center's important. But I'm just saying, the good news, I saw somebody in the YouTube chat was like, do you ever have anything positive to say about this football team? Jeremy Wilson. Do you ever have anything positive to say about this team ever? Been listening for 2 weeks and not one thing. That's the one thing, the offensive line. And we have watched just straight slop for the last 3 years. Dennis Daly and Aaron Brewer at left tackle and left guard with PT at right tackle. Woof. Andre Dillard at left tackle. Aaron Brewer at 270 pounds at center. Chris Hubbard and PT. Woof. Last year, don't even get me started on last year. Bill Callahan will fix it. You'll see. Yeah, it was a disaster. Why? Because they kept winging it. They went into 2022. They had the number one seed in the AFC in 2021. They went into 2022 with no right tackle. They went into 2023 with no left tackle and no right tackle. And they went into 2024 with no right tackle. This year, they got a left tackle and they got a right tackle. And that is going to make a difference. So let me just say that. Like, I am going to give some credit there where credit is due, that I do think the offensive line has improved. And even though in theory, I like the idea of them signing Dan Moore, because I'm like, look, this is what they really did. They paid for a first-round pick. A starting left tackle in the NFL has the value of a first-round pick. I don't care if you use the 8th pick on the guy. I don't care if you use the 30th pick on the guy. If you hit your starting left tackle with the 30th overall pick in the draft, you underdrafted. Like, you overperformed the value of the spot. A starting left tackle in the NFL is gone in every draft by the 14th pick. So you basically bought the 14th pick in the draft by paying for Dan Moore. That's what you did. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that at all. Now, I don't like using the 11th pick on a guard who's not even that good, and I don't like using the 7th pick on a right tackle. But I will say the reason they paid Dan Moore the money was because it was like, hey, we're going to fill this without having to draft it. And you can't draft this unless you use at the highest the 14th pick on it. I think that's a good thing. Now, on the kind of the downside, the negative of this, or whatever, if there is a downside or negative, I was going to make the Titans prove it to me with the offensive line before I took the cheese, because I didn't take the cheese last couple of years when they kept saying things like, you'll see with Andre Dillard. I saw enough today to say this offensive line is going to give Cam a chance. Now, is it going to matter because Cam's inexperienced? I don't know. But I am going to tell you that this offensive line is nothing like you've seen the last 3 years, which is a good thing because that line's been so bad. I walked away from the third day of practice in 2023 and knew the offensive line was a joke. Vrabel kept making excuses, but I knew. I'm like, they suck. And I think we can all agree. If you don't have an offensive line in the NFL, you can't win. Don't make me tell the right tackle story. Robert in Spring Hill says, Jared, I agree that you've been totally negative to this team for the past 2 weeks, but in my opinion, it is with good reason. It all starts at the top. The team has a terrible owner who has made terrible personnel decisions to be the leaders of this team, and if there's no energy on the field, it is the coaching staff's fault. This team was the worst in the league last year and has no energy in the first padded practice. Great job, Amy Adams Strunk. You know, I was telling somebody about this today. Somebody that used to work with us years ago was a finance guy. And he said, you do not make money in real estate by buying $1 million house and selling it 10 years later for $2 million. He said, that's not where you really make money. You're just selling the market value. You bought it at the market value. You sold it at the market value. You now have the market value. The money's the same. He said, where you make money is by buying a $1 million house for $350,000. And then selling it for $2 million. That's where you make the money. And I said this about Callahan because some people are like, the worst thing in the world the Titans can do for Cam Ward is fire Callahan after this year. Well, if Callahan proves to be an incompetent head coach, and I hate to say it, but it's not looking good in that department right now, then you have to fire him after this year. The mistake is not firing Callahan. The mistake was not firing Callahan after you had a year of him under your belt when you went to go draft a quarterback. That is the issue. Like, that's where you messed up. The Chicago Bears didn't mess up by firing Matt Eberflus on Black Friday last year after they lost on Thanksgiving and setting Caleb Williams up with a new coach where he's got to learn a new scheme and a new system and everything else. They screwed up. They screwed up when they kept Matt Eberflus knowing that they were going to draft Caleb Williams. So when it's like, great job, Amy Adams Strunk, I'm saying, like, I don't believe in Callahan. I don't buy the Pee Wee program. You know, he had a whole spiel on that behind-the-scenes show about how we're going to do a lot of talking on the practice field, and that's going to bring a lot of energy. And again, I was out there today, and D. Mace and Willie were like, not a lot of energy, and it kind of felt that way too. I'm not sold on Callahan. Well, if you weren't sold on Callahan after last year, you don't need to be drafting a quarterback knowing that you're probably more likely than not going to have to replace him after a year. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Trevor Mattach joins us next. A bad day. A bad day. Right here on the program. A bad day for Cam Ward. What did Trevor Mattach think of it? We'll get the details to him next. Stillman and Company, 1025. What is the game? This week's Nashville's best deal is Prince's Hot Chicken. Nashville's original hot chicken, bursting with heat and flavor. There's nothing better than the original. For a limited time, grab half off a $25 gift card at theGameNashville.com/deals. So it was a bad day today out there for Cam Ward. Again, I sat there and I watched it, and I was like, Cam had a so-so day. It's funny. I was talking to Derek, and I was like, Cam had it's kind of up and down, and Derek was like, Cam didn't have a so-so day. Cam had a bad day. I asked Derek for a grade. He gave him a C-. According to Jim Wyatt's statistics, Cam Ward 5 of 9 and 7 on 7, 6 of 17 in team period, 11 for 26, 3 interceptions today. As Jim Wyatt wrote, Ward took a few shots in the session, but he overthrew both Calvin Ridley and Van Jefferson. Ward threw a beauty of a pass across the middle to Tyler Lockett in a team period. In 4 training camp practices, Ward is now 46 of 78 with 5 interceptions so far in camp. So 5 interceptions. They've had 4 practices. Make of that what you will. First day with pads, 3 on there. The accuracy is a concern. It reminds me watching Cam and just how his struggles, in the intermediate are kind of just the ball's too high. It's a little bit behind. It's a little bit low. It's a little bit high. And with the deep ball, it's, 3 yards too far, 3 yards too short, 3 yards too. It reminds me of Blake Bortles coming out of UCF. Again, it was one day of practice. That's all I saw. Trevor Mattach joins us now on the program from ESPN, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. So, Trevor, let's start there. How concerning do you make of the bad Cam Ward day today at practice?
Jared, I don't think it's that concerning unless he doesn't get better from here. The advantage he has by having such a clunker today is that it sets a low bar for him to then improve from. And so that's what we need to be looking for, is not necessarily that he was bad today, but rather how he then improves on a bunch of things. And to start with, there are things that you can say that, aren't as bad as it looked because, for example, the 3 interceptions, one of them was a miscommunication on a route with Chigakonkwo. Another one, he threw it sidearm to try to weave it through some traffic. It ended up bouncing off the head of defensive tackle Tavondre Sweat, bounced up in the air, and it was picked off. So that's 2 of the 3 interceptions there. But it's too often that you see him throw late. You see him behind when it comes to the mental aspect of the game. Not every time, but often he's looking around for a receiver who's open that he can throw to. That's great in college because in college, coverages usually aren't all that tight most of the time. In the NFL, coverages are usually very tight and routes come open for a brief moment. And you can't throw the ball to a receiver when you see him open because by the time the ball gets there, very often the window closes. You have to anticipate when the route's coming open based on what the defense is. Is it zone? Is it man? What kind of zone? What kind of man, actually? And throw the ball before that window opens so that it arrives in the open window and the receiver can make the catch before the window closes again. And in college, you see it, quarterbacks a lot, including Cam Ward, look around, see a receiver, and zip it over to him, and everybody says, yay, that's fantastic. Well, in the NFL, if that's how you try to do it, you're going to end up being a turnover machine, and things aren't going to work. So one of the things to watch for going forward in camp is, can he more regularly anticipate where the open window is going to be and throw the ball before the window opens so it arrives on time when it does open?
Trevor, here's what D. May said earlier today on the midday show about what he saw out of Cam. And I was watching more of the offensive line than I was watching Cam and watching him, kind of process the play. Here's what Derek said.
So it seemed like there was a concerted effort to push the ball down the field by all means. And there were times where Cam was off, whether it be underthrown or overthrown. Now, he made some good throws in the midst of all of that too, but it seemed like he was half a tick slow at times. And it doesn't seem again, rookie day. They need to do better, but it doesn't seem like it seems like he still was in college mode where he was a little late. He was late on things, and things were not clicking fast for him. It's like he was reading everything just a tad bit too slow on several situations where I thought he should have got to the backside quicker. But today just seemed like he was processing all of what they were doing up front. He was doing that, and what it was doing, it was slowing him down in his progression. He has to get better at that.
Trev, what's your reaction to that? And if that's where he is now, without making the assumption that he'll get better tomorrow or 2 weeks from now or whatever, would that make you cautious towards putting him in there right away to start if he's still in college mode with his process?
Well, yeah, I mean, on day one of the regular season, you bet it would make me cautious. But there's a lot of practice to be had in the preseason games and practice against other teams that he'll have a chance to grow and show that he is ready mentally. I mean, part of the problem today is that his own defense is not making it easy on him. I mean, they were bringing safeties up pre-snap and then bailing them out, showing all kinds of coverage disguised as pre-snap, which just complicates it for Cam. Now, those are things that he'll need to be able to deal with when we get to the regular season. But right now, the defense is forcing him to have to deal with that stuff, and that's one of the things that was slowing him down. A symptom of him being slowed down, when we talk about how he looks for an open receiver instead of anticipating a spot, that's because mentally he's not processing it correctly yet. He's not processing it fast enough. But what tends to happen is when you see a receiver and then you throw it to him, you tend to throw it behind the receiver because the receiver's still moving. You see the guy, you throw it to where you see the guy. Well, by the time the ball gets there, the receiver continues on. And that actually happened on some of his great plays in the first few days of training camp where he was throwing the ball deep down the field, but receivers had to pause and wait for the ball. Well, complete, touchdown, crowd goes nuts, all that, but that's not very good. And so when it comes to processing slowly, it's okay that he's doing that now. He's seeing the problems of processing slowly now. He's seeing a little more complexity against his own defense than he probably was anticipating now in the first day of padded practice. But the key is not to judge him on today. The key is to see if he improves at all tomorrow and the next day and the next day, because that really is the path he needs to be on. I would be pretty concerned if Cam Ward went out today in the first padded practice and lit everything up and looked like a superstar, because that would indicate to me that the coaches were scheming offense and defense to make Cam look good so that everybody would think he was farther ahead than he is. I'd much rather see them scheme in a way that forces him to do the hard things so he can learn to do the hard things. The question is, will he learn?
Trevor Mattach is with us on the program. So, Trevor, if we were kind of preparing a plan for Cam Ward, they practice at Tampa Bay next Thursday, and then they play next Saturday against the Buccaneers. We're kind of in this society now where they really don't like playing players in preseason games, but those are live bullet reps. So how would you go about handling Cam Ward in the preseason, and how necessary would those reps be for you in order to roll with Cam at the beginning of the year at Denver?
Yeah, I hate it when coaches play young quarterbacks and young starters in the preseason very little. They put them in for 1 or 2 series in the first game, and that's it. They do the same thing in the second game, and that's it. Then in the third preseason game, they don't play at all. That I cannot fathom why they do that. They say, well, gee, we don't want them to get hurt. Well, okay, they're more likely to get hurt if they're not ready for the season opener, mentally or physically. There are starters and veterans that don't need a whole lot of time in preseason games. I get that part. But a young quarterback like Cam Ward, I would be stunned if he doesn't play well into the second quarter in that first preseason game and maybe the entire first half. That's what I would be doing. And then pull them out and let some of the other guys get some time. Then do the same thing in the next preseason game. It's one of the reasons that I hate it, that the league cut one of the preseason games in order to put in an extra regular season game. They should have added the 17th regular season game and kept 4 preseason games, because those veterans that don't need the 4th preseason game or even the 3rd, they don't have to play. But the young guys need that desperately. Certainly the backups who won't get a whole lot of playing time in the regular season need those preseason games, but especially quarterbacks like Cam Ward are going to need that. And so they've got the opportunity to give him a whole lot of playing time in the preseason. We'll see if they do it. Now, if they do, he's still going against simplified defenses and coverages, and he's going against second, third, and fourth string guys, many, if not most of which, aren't going to be on NFL teams in the regular season anyway. But it doesn't matter. It's still a game scenario, and he would need to be out there getting his feet wet, getting out of first gear, getting out of second gear, because he can't afford to go from second or third gear to fifth gear for the first time in week 1 of the regular season against Denver.
Trevor, do you believe that the turnovers, 5 interceptions in 4 practices, 3 today, that the turnovers are fine and he'll be fine and not to worry about him? Because I was looking through Jim Wyatt's notes. I don't think Brandon Allen or Tim Boyle have thrown an interception yet. I would have no problem with Brandon Allen starting that opener against Denver. In fact, if I was the coach, he probably would be starting against Denver. But when do we worry about the interceptions?
Yeah, we worry about the interceptions when they continue to happen day to day to day for the wrong reasons. Early on, you've got the miscommunication on a route with Chegg, interception. You got ball bouncing off a defensive lineman's helmet, bounces into the air, interception, those kinds of things. I don't mind it in camp if he's throwing interceptions because he's lofting the ball into tight coverage. Because sometimes the coaches want to see if the receiver out there in tight coverage can make a play. I mean, that's one thing that Alec Iomatter, the draft choice out of Stanford, excelled at in college. Can he do it at this level? Let's give him a chance. Throw it to him, Cam, even if he's covered. See if he can make the play. Those kinds of things don't bother me. Interceptions bother me when they are thrown late. When the quarterback is not on time, but rather he's looking around for somewhere to throw it. All of a sudden the pressure starts to converge, and so he goes ahead and sees somebody and throws it that way. Okay, then interceptions really bother me. But an interception in camp from a young quarterback, especially early in camp, that is thrown on time to a spot and the ball is relatively accurate, if it's picked anyway, I don't mind that as much because I'm not sure exactly what they're trying to do on that play. And it may just be to see if the receiver can stop the interception and make the catch anyway.
Trevor, I put up a poll. I said, who will be better in 5 years, Cam Ward or Caleb Williams? 71% of the people think Cam Ward. Are they crazy?
Well, I think they're crazy. That might not be the reason why. I think Cam Ward's got a good chance for that, and here's why. In college, Caleb Williams concerned me from an NFL future standpoint when he was at Oklahoma, but also at USC, especially USC. Because he was very much a wild maverick of a quarterback. This is Caleb Williams now in college, he would play within the system at times, and other times he would just go run around and do his own thing and make plays, and he was so gifted physically that he could make those plays. Well, that's not going to work long-term in the NFL. That's actually going to cause lots of problems long-term in the NFL, and you have to be humble enough to subordinate what you want to do to what the system requires of you and what you're being coached to do. And by all accounts, Cam Ward is being incredibly coachable. He's being professionally humble, personally humble, while also being athletically a bit arrogant, which you need to be. But that combination, it seems that he has shown so far, and I'm not sure that I've seen that yet from Caleb Williams. So even though Williams might be more gifted overall, I think that right now Cam Ward is showing what Caleb Williams so far I haven't seen from, and that is the humility to accept coaching rather than just say, "Hey, I was the number 1 pick of the draft. for a reason. I'm going to do it my way, not your way. Now,
I don't
we
like
talked about
Caleb's
this today.
personality either, but I would piss my pants if Cam throws for 3,500 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 6 picks this year, which is what Caleb did last year.
Right. Well, yeah, but see, I'm talking about the long-term ability to be successful here. And so, yeah, if Cam's able to do that, then good for him. And really, the key for him to be able to approach 3,000 yards this year is going to be two things. One is he's going to have to not be a hero. He played a lot of hero ball in college where he had a check down available, but he decided he wanted to run around and wait for a receiver to get open deep. And when he did, he'd throw the ball deep down the field, and that was wonderful. He's got to avoid that. He's got to avoid taking risks and making mistakes and turning it over, and he's got to have a good running game. If he can avoid the mistakes, and if he has a good running game, which will open up the play action for him, he's got the deep accuracy to be able to hit a lot of big plays, which is what you need to do in order to get up around 3,000 yards. And the thing is, his accuracy right now with his receivers is kind of spotty. I think part of the reason is that at Miami, he was throwing the ball to people like Xavier Restrepo. Nothing against Restrepo. He's not as slow as the 4.8 that he ran on his pro day, but he's not the fastest receiver in the world. And Cam kind of had a real good feel of how guys like Restrepo at Miami, where they were going to be deep down the field. And it seems like he's kind of doing the same kind of thing when it's Calvin Ridley and Van Jefferson running down the field, and he's throwing the ball kind of behind those guys right now. And I'm assuming he's going to get used to the speed of the guys he's dealing with as training camp goes on. If he can do that, he's got a chance to throw for a whole lot of yards this year if that offensive line can give him a quality running game.
More with Trevor Mattach on the other side, 615-737-1025. We've hit the Cam stuff. Now the other stuff, the rest of the team. Trevor Mattach, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, 1025-106 for the game.
I did think there was a little bit of a lack of pep, tempo, an energy. And it's got nothing to do with what they're doing at practice. It's how they're doing it. Did you see that?
Unfortunately, I said this before, first day of practice, and it seemed to have had some people scratching their heads like, what does he mean? The practice was, it was a good practice. So when I'm looking at practice, I may be looking at it from a different sort of vantage than someone else, or a different type of mentality or whatnot than somebody else, because there was no energy the first day of practice, and today there was not much energy there today.
Okay, that was D. Mason Willie earlier today. Trevor Mattach with us, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Trev, how concerned would you be? Derek went out to the first day of practice and said, this is not a lot of energy here. And I'd say there was some pushback on that. And then today, Derek was out there and he was like, I'd say there wasn't a lot of energy out there. I agree, including when I was waiting for the offensive and defensive linemen to do the one-on-ones. They took so long to get lined up and to get going. I was sitting there watching them get set, and I'm like, hurry up, let's go. Trevor, how concerned should we be about the quote-unquote lack of energy at practice today?
I'm not as concerned as D-Mace was, just because, you're still in the first week of camp. You're in the first day today of full pads. It's been a sweltering heat wave with a lot of humidity. And especially when you put on pads for the first time, it's going to wear you down. And so I think physically, I give them not a pass necessarily, but I give them a bit of grace when it comes to not being in that kind of shape. You can't get ready for that except for by doing it. No amount of running or weightlifting or anything else will get you ready for full pad practice in heat and humidity, except for full pad practice in heat and humidity. So you got to do that. And by the way, when you start training camp, it's a little different now because they're not doing 2-a-days in full pads like we used to do back in the day. But it's still a similar concept with your body getting ready, getting adjusted to full pads and things like that. When you get into the 4th and 5th day of practice, your legs feel like lead, and everything just is miserable. From there, you start to pick it up, and you start to get accustomed to it, and then your body gets into more football shape, and then the energy that you have can be more relevant. The problem is when you're physically exhausted and beat down and hot and humid and all the rest, it's hard mentally to look like you're pepping around. You're being peppy. And so I am not as concerned now that there's not a lot of energy, but if it's the same way in 4 or 5 days, then I would have a whole big concern.
What do you make of that? Do you put that on the coach? Do you put that on the team, the leaders? Where do you put that?
You put that on the Heat. Right now they're acclimating to it. It's like when you lift weights, so let's say you're doing bench press. What you're doing is recruiting and fatiguing muscle fibers, and you're actually creating little micro tears in the muscles. Then you recover from that, and during the recovery period, your body repairs those little micro tears a little stronger than they were before, and that's how you gain muscle mass and gain strength. Well, it's that way when you're out playing football in full pads and you're smashing against people now, because you can't replicate that any way other than to actually do it. So now you've got other, parts of your body, your muscles and your tendons are being fatigued and recruited in ways that they weren't in the weight room, that they can't be in the weight room. And as you recover and those micro tears heal, you will become stronger in those ways. So, I'm not ready to say right now that there's even a problem. I would think that I would be dragging like crazy as well in the first, few days of full pads practice in a heat wave like this.
Trevor, I was actually impressed with the offensive line today. I mean, I know the defense, outplayed them in the run periods and things like that, but You know, for the last couple of years, I've gone to training camp and I've seen the offensive lines and I've said, holy crap, these guys suck. This year, I didn't feel that way with Dan Moore in there. Zeitler got pushed on his tush a couple times by Simmons. Latham looks like, in my opinion, a natural fit on the right side. What do you make of the quote-unquote new and improved offensive line with Dan Moore and Zeitler to go with Skoronski and Latham that the Titans have right now?
Yeah, Skoronski is showing up, isn't he? He's dropping anchor and not getting pushed around. That's pretty awesome.
Much
I
more
think it's
impressive this
amazing.
year from Skoronski than last year. I'm not going to lie.
And so we'll see if he can carry that forward now. The thing about this offensive line, and you and I have talked about it so much, Jared, it's become kind of fun to talk about how the offensive line for the last couple of years of the Titans should have been inducted into the Hall of Fame in Canton as one of the most inept, horrific offensive lines in history. It's terrible. And we talked about how especially at the tackle positions, if this offensive line can improve from heinous to merely decent, it would make an enormous difference in the performance of the offense. Well, they have improved from heinous this year to what I expect to be pretty good. I mean, I expect this to be a pretty good offensive line. And if they're able to do that, people won't recognize this Titans offense. Now, there's a lot of training camp to go before they even get to the first preseason game. We'll see if they're able to come together, because on the offensive line, more than any other position, it's about coordination. It's not about overall talent level as much as it is about guys playing together for a long time and getting used to one another. And so as long as they can come together as a unit, then this offensive line has a chance to do a lot of really good things. Once again, I'm not ready to say, hey, they're going to be great. But you mentioned the players along that line. And when you look at them individually, especially with Skoronski's apparent improvement and growth, I mean, this is an offensive line individually that looks completely different from what we've seen for 3 or 4 years.
Trevor Mattach, as always, on our program, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, where experience matters. Trevor, great stuff. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Jared.
Yep, the best, Trevor Mattach, on our program. 615-737-1025 here on Stillman and Company. So, today was a bad day for Cam Ward. And it got me thinking because, hey, it was just one day of practice. But is that really something that we should be trying to excuse? I'll get to that coming up next here on the program. Hey, this fall, live at the Pinnacle Nashville Yards, Tim McGraw will perform at Trinix Rock the Cradle. This event is sure to be a great time celebrating a great cause. Proceeds from the event will support newborns and moms at Ascension St. Thomas Midtown. Get your tickets now at rockthecradlenashville.org. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. First day of pads for practice. Cam Ward was atrocious. And I was there. I saw it. He did a little good, but a lot of bad. 3 interceptions, one of which was more Chig's fault than his fault. But you know what? Cam Ward's got to learn. Can't trust Chig. Can't count on Chig. There was a workout piece that they put out that showed Cam at Miami during the break, where Cam was like working out with the Titans receivers, and he was like, "We're waiting on Chig," and I kept saying that. I'm like, Cam, we've been waiting on Chig for 3 years. The difference is I'm done waiting on Chig. Like you guys keep waiting on Chig. If you're counting on Chig, you're gonna have the same fate that Ryan Tannehill and Will Levis have. So be careful there. He threw the ball out of bounds. There was a completion down the sideline to Bryce Oliver. Beautiful ball, beautiful catch. Only problem was the ball was out of bounds. His processing, according to Derek Mason, I was more looking at the offensive and defensive lines than I was looking at Cam's processing. His processing, according to D-Mace, slow. As Derek said, in college mode. Now, tomorrow, the Titans will be out on the football field, and that will be an opportunity for Cam Ward and for anybody else who didn't play well today. That will be an opportunity for Cam Ward to rectify the bad day of practice that he had. But the truth is, unless you don't want to hear the truth, Cam had a bad day of practice. But it's only one day of practice. And we should keep that in mind. It's one day. But then I started thinking, how many bad days is Cam Ward allowed to have? Floyd told me a story years ago when he was general manager of the Oilers. He was at some event, and a guy came up to him in Houston, and he said, "What happened to the Oilers today?" And apparently Warren Moon didn't have a very good day. And he said, "Well, Warren just had a bad day." He said, "Surely you know that in your job." And the guy looked at Floyd and he said, "I'm a cardiologist. If I have a bad day, somebody dies." And from that moment on, the way Floyd told it to me was this idea of, it's a bad day, it'll be okay. Not for the cardiologist, eh? Now, look, I have no idea if that story was true or not, or if that was just a story that Floyd concocted so that anytime somebody tries to brush something off as a bad day, he can just say, "Well, I talked to a cardiologist one time who said, oh, yeah, if I have a bad day, somebody dies." I don't know. But I was thinking about the touch points in the draft process. If today's practice was Cam Ward's pro day, or if today's practice was Cam Ward's individual workout, you wouldn't draft him. He showed poor accuracy. And again, accuracy is something that as a quarterback, it's usually not taught. It's usually something you have. I know that Josh Allen is living proof that you can improve your accuracy as a passer, but for the most part, you're either accurate or you're not. Again, his processing skills were slow, according to D-Mace. If you were out there, you had the number 1 pick in the draft, you're the general manager, you're the president of football operations, your career is riding on this. And you go out and you saw what I saw today, which is 3 turnovers, slow process. Again, I didn't see the slow processing, but Derek did, so I'll take his word for it. Slow processing, incompletions, inaccuracies. Are you drafting that guy number 1 overall? Again, that's just a bad day. That was just one day. Ryan Tannehill had a bad day against the Cincinnati Bengals. It cost you what I believe is the Super Bowl. So I asked this question. How many bad days is Cam Ward allowed to have? Is he allowed to have a season full of bad days where he struggles and he's not reading the coverages and he's throwing interceptions in games? And this is a serious question. How many bad days is he allowed to have? Derrick Henry ran for 2,000 yards in 2020. He ran for 40 yards against the Ravens in the playoffs. Months later, I talked to Derrick Henry, and I said to Derrick Henry, I go, how much Do you think the Ravens game is a problem? And how much do you look at that as a one-off? And Derrick Henry looked at me and goes, you're only as good as your best game. Excuse me, you're only as good as your last game. And I'm like, clearly Derrick Henry has a problem with it. I have no idea how Cam Ward's going to react to today's practice. If Cam Ward is all that in a bag of chips, like the coaching staff has been hyping him up to every national reporter who will listen, if that is the case, then tomorrow's practice will be flawless. But again, I'm not willing to make that assumption. I'm not going to say Cam Ward will bust, even though some of you seem to think that's what I want. I do not want that. I do not like covering a crappy team. It is not fun. It is way more fun to cover a good team. But while I'm not going to assume that Cam Ward is going to bust, I also am not assuming that Cam Ward is a franchise quarterback. And I also am not willing to assume that this process is going to go smoothly without bumps along the way. And when it comes to the Titans, and it came to what my desire was at the beginning of the entire Cam Ward draft process, which was to trade the draft picks, I was thinking, what is best long-term for the Titans? They think drafting Cam Ward was what was best for the Titans. That's their opinion. Mine was different. Now that Cam Ward is the quarterback, my opinion is, okay, what is in the best interest of giving Cam Ward the best opportunity to be a superstar quarterback? Sometimes I think your opinions, and I'm not talking about everybody, but I'm talking about a lot of the texts I get, tweets I get, things like that, are about what gives them the best chance to beat the Denver Broncos. I don't care about beating the Denver Broncos in week 1. I care about developing Cam Ward so that 3 years from now, instead of having these discussions about is Cam Ward going to be a bust or not, is Cam Ward having bad days at practice, our discussions are, is Cam Ward ready to go toe-to-toe with Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Lamar Jackson? C.J. Stroud in Houston. Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. That's what I'm worried about. But I have to ask, how many bad days? The distinguished gentleman in the YouTube chat, my guy, how many bad days is Cam allowed to have until we say, okay, now we need to assess the situation and what they should do going forward? 2 bad days? 5 bad days? 10 bad days? Andre Dillard was allowed to have a bad day at practice every day. You want to know why? Because Andre Dillard sucked. Vrabel made every excuse in the book for him, but he sucked. So I'm just telling you, I know it was 1 bad day, but at the same time, he's got 5 interceptions through 4 days of camp. That's not good. How many bad days until we get worried? 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. So let me say this. We all want the same thing. We all want the same thing, right? We all want Cam Ward to be a franchise quarterback. And yet, Brian Callahan and many of you, it feels like, is ready to just rule out one thing that a lot of great quarterbacks have done. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 through the game.
So it seemed like there was a concerted effort to push the ball down the field by all means. And there were times where Cam was off, whether it be underthrown or overthrown. Now, he made some good throws in the midst of all of that too, but it seemed like he was half a tick slow at times. And it doesn't seem, again, rookie day, they need to do better, but it doesn't seem like it seems like he still was in college mode where he was a little late. He was late on things, and things were not clicking fast for him. It's like he was reading everything just a tad bit too slow on several situations where I thought he should have got to the backside quicker. But today just seemed like he was processing all of what they were doing up front. He was doing that, and what it was doing, it was slowing him down in his progression. He has to get better at that.
There you go. That was Derek Mason today, not me. He's like, hey, Cam is in college mode with his progressions. He got to hurry up. Got to go. And I know Trevor was just on, and Trevor said, like, hey, let's see where it is in a couple of weeks. And so let me say this. If Cam Ward, there's one of two options here, right? Either Cam Ward in a couple of days is processing way quicker because he's caught up to the speed of the game. And because he's caught up to the speed of the game, he now is, okay, got to move off that, move over there, put the ball there. Great, done. Not worried about the rush. Trust the offensive line. It'll be okay. Let's go. And if that's the case and he conquers that step and it looks like he's ready, fine. Then he's ready for NFL action. Put him out there. Let's see. Put him in a game. Fine. The one thing that bothers me is how many people are so offended by the idea of door number 2. And door number 2 is if it takes him a little bit longer to be able to speed up the game. If he's still in college mode by preseason game number 3, where he's unsure of his protection and he's looking down and now he's looking up and he's throwing it where the guy was because he put the ball where the guy was at that time, but the guy's already made his cut and he's not throwing guys open and he's not anticipating and then what? And to me, it's simple. If he's still slow processing, then Brandon Allen starts against Denver and will start until Cam is ready to process quickly enough. Period. I got no issue with that. I bring that up. I also, by the way, have no issue with Cam improving in training camp and Cam improving during the preseason games of the joint practices, that once Cam is ready, it's like, you know what? He's ready for Denver. Put him out there. I got no problem with that. My focus is on Cam Ward being the best he can be 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I don't give a rat's ass about the Denver Bronco game. I don't give a rat's ass about the 2025 season. And I sure as hell don't give a rat's ass about Brian Callahan's job status. I'm just worried about Cam Ward being a superstar quarterback, because if Cam Ward isn't a superstar quarterback, everybody's fired, start over again. And I hate that. So I'm willing to say, hey, Cam can improve, and if Cam improves, put him out there. But I think the other people, with all the hype, they hear the idea of Brandon Allen, and they're like, guffaw, how dare you bring up the idea, Jared, of playing Brandon Allen at quarterback? How dare you? Jim Wyatt has his breakdown of how the quarterbacks have done so far during camp. And again, I don't get too caught up in what the QB stats are or whatever, but they are what they are. He said right now, Cam Ward is 46 of 78 with 5 interceptions. 46 of 78 with 5 picks. Brandon Allen is 28 of 35 with 1 pick. That's 1 pick in 4 practices versus 5 picks in 4 practices. I don't know what the percentage is with Allen versus Ward of 28 of 35 versus, again, what was it of Ward? Like 46 of 50 something? 46 is 78. Woof. So if those were the stats, I mean, isn't it obvious that Brandon Allen is more advanced than Cam Ward? So whenever I bring up the idea of sitting Cam Ward behind Brandon Allen, which would have been my default position after drafting Ward, it would have been to make Cam Ward prove that he's ready to play in the NFL, ready to start in the NFL before I let the toothpaste out of the tube. I have just reiterated that point. Everybody says, how dare you, Jared? And here's what I have a hard time with. You want Mahomes, right? Mahomes sat on the bench. You want McNair, right? McNair sat on the bench. Brady sat on the bench. Aaron Rodgers sat on the bench. Lamar Jackson sat on the bench. Josh Allen did not start his first game as a rookie. Nathaniel Peterman did. And he's a total bum. So you want Allen, you want Lamar, you want those guys, but you won't do what they did because you have too much pride. My quarterback is better than that, Jared. Better than Mahomes. Callahan today was asked about sitting young quarterbacks. Here's what Callahan had to say.
Young quarterbacks join teams that aren't very good and are drafting high about them potentially sitting, waiting, developing. When you take the guy first overall, it's not really much of a question. But what is it about Cam that makes you confident if things get ugly, if the situation is really rough for him in the season, that his development won't be stunted, he'll be able to handle it anyways?
Yeah, playing quarterback in the NFL, I don't think there's any substitutes of playing quarterback. You know, there's so many things they learn when they play the game that you can't necessarily simulate and teach. That part of being in the fire is what helps quarterbacks get better faster. So I've always been a big believer in guys playing. That's how they improve. And so his demeanor gives me a ton of confidence that he can handle a rough spot or two. Because look, it's the reality of quarterback playing the league and being a young player. Like, there's going to be ups and downs. It happens. But you see his demeanor, his heart rate never changes. He doesn't flinch when it comes to a mistake or two, and he just goes right back and does it again. And I think that's the makeup you have to have as an NFL quarterback, because, you know, every quarterback in the league throws interceptions. Every quarterback in the league gets sacked. Every quarterback in the league loses games. And so you have to battle through those moments, and the mindset and the makeup of the person is really what separates guys and being able to handle those things. So Cam has shown thus far that he's up to that task, and there's still things to come and still things he's going to have to deal with, but pleased with his ability to handle it so far.
Now, that was before practice today. So he's sitting there saying, hey, Cam goes out there, he throws an interception, and he gets right back on the horse. Yeah, he got right back on the horse today, and he threw 3 interceptions. You know, you can just say, oh, it was a bad day of practice. Oh, it was one day. Oh, it doesn't count. Oh, who cares? You're not going to say that if it's a Denver Bronco game. And then what are you going to do? You're going to bench him? Once he's the starter, you can't bench him. So I am very cautious when it comes to the number 1 overall pick, because I am scared to death of screwing it up. And yet I think many of you just think that it is impossible to screw up Cam Ward. And it sounds like Callahan thinks it's impossible to screw up Cam Ward. And that is terrifying, because Callahan is the one, if someone's going to screw up Cam Ward, who's going to do it, it's him. I just can't get over this idea that Callahan's like, I think the only way quarterbacks get better is by playing. Really? Because Andy Reid doesn't think that. Now, who's smarter, you or Andy Reid? Again, you want Mahomes, but you don't want to do what the smart coach that Mahomes has did for Mahomes. But Jared, they had Alex Smith. So they drafted Patrick Mahomes because Alex Smith could not win in the playoffs. They were the number 2 seed against the Steelers. They got beat. They drafted Mahomes. They made it to the playoffs with Alex Smith. They lost to Mariota and the Titans. They could not win in the playoffs with Alex Smith. That's why they drafted Mahomes. That fan base was crying during that season for Nick Foles to take over for Alex Smith. Borgonzi has said, hey, it was hard to keep Mahomes on the bench, but we had to do what was best for him. That was the plan. It doesn't matter who the starting quarterback is. What matters is what's best for Cam. It doesn't matter if you've got Alex Smith ahead of him or if you've got Chris Chandler like Steve McNair did. It doesn't matter. If you care that much about it, go sign Ryan Tannehill and bring him in here and go put him at quarterback. Then can Cam sit and develop? Again, it doesn't matter to me. The Denver Bronco game does not matter. Because 4 years from now, we won't be worried about the Denver Bronco game. If you screw up Cam Ward, 4 years from now, you'll still suck and we'll still be searching like Moses through the desert for a quarterback. But I guess you guys have too much pride to admit what you would say about anybody else. Too much pride. Our guy doesn't need to sit the bench, Jared. Our guy's so good. Yeah, well, apparently your guy on your team stationery from your team's beat writer is 46 of 78 with 5 interceptions. Yay. 615-737-1025 will hit your phones, plus a couple of other observations I had from practice we'll get to next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 for the game.
I did think there was a little bit of a lack of pep, tempo, an energy. And it's got nothing to do with what they're doing at practice. It's how they're doing it. Did you see that?
Unfortunately, I said this before, first day of practice, and it seemed to have had some people scratching their heads like, what does he mean? The practice was, it was a good practice. So when I'm looking at practice, I may be looking at it from a different sort of vantage than someone else, or a different type of mentality or whatnot than somebody else, because there was no energy the first day of practice. And today, there was not much energy there today.
Okay, so that was Derek and Willie earlier today. I would say second. I guess I third the notion that today lacked energy out there on the practice field. Couple of takeaways I have. Number one, today was the first day that I've been at a Titans practice in 2 years where I've really been like, man, I miss Mike Vrabel. And it's not that I think Vrabel's a very good coach or could develop Cam or anything like that, but the lack of energy today at practice, I don't ever remember that being an issue with Vrabel as the coach. And I just think that that's kind of the mentality that Brian Callahan has put in around there, which is he's patting everybody on the ass all the time. And because everyone's getting patted on the ass all the time, they just lollygag around. Arden Key today talked about great practice. Jeffrey Simmons, great practice. Cody Barton, great practice. Sebastian Joseph Day was on with Chase and Big Joe, great practice. Derek is like, yeah, no. Willie, yeah, no. Me, saw it, yeah, no. But when you have a society where all you do is sit around, pat each other on the butt all day, then you're going to have a bad practice and you'll make all the excuses. And that's exactly what they did last year, which allowed them to have the worst team in football. And then the coach cried when they won a game. And I'm like, okay, like let's get some coaching back into this. That's first thing. The second thing is, and this, I talked to a former Titan who wasn't Derek today. I watched the one-on-ones, the big guys versus the big guys. So while the skill players were doing 7-on-7, you had the big guys, Simmons versus Zeitler, and Key versus Dan Moore, and Draymond Jones versus J.C. Latham. And, I mean, you had some, good on good. Two things absolutely pissed me off. Number one, T'Vondre Sweat took one rep. One rep. I was sitting there talking to a couple people, and they're like, has Sweat even been in? I'm like, yeah, he went like on the second rep against Corey Levin, and that's it. I mean, T'Vondre Sweat was just sitting there picking his ass. Like, let's go. Get back in there. I mean, look, I understand the bad players have to get these reps too. So we have to watch Crenshaw Dixon, number 78, go out there at tackle, where I'd rather just watch J.C. Latham get reps. I get it. But in this instance, I think Simmons took 2 or 3 reps. Key took 2 or 3 reps. I mean, Sweat needs to get your ass up there and let's go. The other thing, and I talked to a former Titan player about this who felt the same way I did. Femi Oladejo only went against backups. I kept waiting for Femi Oladejo to go up against somebody good. I want to see Femi Oladejo go up against somebody good because the Titans need to sack the quarterback. And I'm sorry, with the group of guys they have, if Femi Oladejo, who I don't really know a whole lot about, if Femi Oladejo is a second-round rookie, doesn't get out there and sack the quarterback, I don't see a lot of options as to who's sacking the quarterback on the roster. So I'm watching for Femi Oladejo. He went up against the aforementioned Crenshaw Dixon. He went up against number 72. I don't even know who the hell that is. He did not go up against any of the good players. So I thought to myself, oh, is that a sign? Is that a sign that this team is, not really all in on Femi Oladejo at this point? They're bringing him along slowly. Somebody named Osalameka Udoa, a seventh-year guy out of Elon, is number 72. That is who Femi Oladejo is going up against. I'd like to see him go up against Dan Moore. But again, I'm like, okay, so is this something where like Femi Oladejo is just, he's on the second team, so he's going up against, then they went team period, and there's Femi Oladejo out there with Jeffrey Simmons and Tavondre Sweat. I'm like, whoa. So we're not going to iron sharpen iron. We're not going to put Femi Oladejo up against real NFL tackles, because I can promise you, when you play the Denver Broncos in week 1, that's going to be Garrett Bowles at left tackle and Mike McGlinchey at right tackle. Those are real NFL tackles. That is not Olasamika Udoa and Brandon Crenshaw Dixon, whoever the hell that is. That bothered me in those periods. The offensive line, though, held their own, and I really, really like that. It's kind of the big positive there. Joey Slye made some kicks. That's the positive. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Matthew from Jolton says, your Brandon Allen point is redundant. Patrick Mahomes sat behind Alex Smith. Tom Brady got lucky going in after Drew Bledsoe got hurt. Lamar Jackson sat behind Joe Flacco. Aaron Rodgers sat behind Brett Favre. And Brandon Allen is nowhere close to those guys. Well, I don't know how that's redundant, but I understand what you're saying. You're saying that it's a fake argument because Brandon Allen's not as good as those guys. Here's what I would tell you. Number one, Nathaniel Peterman started over Josh Allen week 1 of Allen's rookie year. Did it matter? Because Nathaniel Peterman is like Brandon Allen. Number 2, I'm not worried about getting the Alex Smith results or the Drew Bledsoe results or the Joe Flacco results. I'm not worried about getting those results. I'm worried about getting the Mahomes results, the Lamar results, the Brady results. That's what I'm worried about. If you're worried about beating the Denver Broncos, or how this team's record is going to be this year, or whether or not Brian Callahan's going to keep his job, I think you're worried about the wrong thing. I'm worried about the development of Cam Ward. What is in the best interest of Cam? Even if Cam is better than Brandon Allen, which I'm not willing to say right now, even if Cam is better than Brandon Allen, and he gives you a better chance to beat the Broncos, I am not worried about what gives me the best chance to beat the Broncos. I'm worried about what gives me the best chance to develop Cam Ward. That's what I'm worried about. Some of you seem to be more worried about trying to beat the Denver Broncos or saving Brian Callahan's job. Like any of us should care about that. Each quarterback is different. Some need to sit, Jared. Some don't. You can't tell that off one day of padded practice. I can tell you this. If Derek Mason says, hey, he's processing slowly, that is a sign that he's not ready. Now, he's got 40 days to get ready. And a lot can change in 40 days. But let's not make the assumption that it will. One texter says, I'm fine with Cam sitting behind Ryan Tannehill. I'm fine with Cam sitting behind Aaron Rodgers. I'm fine with him sitting behind Jameis Winston. But we are talking about our alternate as Brandon freaking Allen. Brandon Allen is playing against second stringers. Those quarterbacks sat behind much better quarterbacks, and Alex Smith got them to the playoffs. Brandon Allen has literally done nothing. You know what's crazy? Brandon Allen almost went into the Super Bowl. You remember Burrow and that horrible offensive line where Isaiah Prince was starting at right tackle and Quentin Spain was starting at right guard, and Burrow still got him into the Super Bowl? Remember, he was coming off the ACL tear, and there was a play where Burrow hurt his knee, and he was down on the ground. It was like, oh, my God. Oh, my God. Brandon Allen might have to go in. If Brian Callahan can live with Brandon Allen going into the Super Bowl, surely he can live with him playing against the Broncos. For some reason, some of you can't. Again, I think it's a pride thing more than anything else. Mo says, Brinker and Borgonzi told everyone the team was going to suck. Maybe that's why the energy at practice is so low. That might be a fair point. I mean, that I may tell you. One texter says, I think people confuse with Brandon Allen being in the league for a long time versus Brandon Allen's talent. Brandon Allen knows how to prepare and what to see in the NFL. He just doesn't have the talent to win. Agreed. I'm more worried about the future. I'm not worried about the Denver Bronco game. I want the Mahomes results. So let's do what Mahomes did. But he had Alex Smith. So Alex Smith played those games. Brandon Allen can play these games. I'm still getting the Mahomes results, right? Like I'm still doing what you did for Mahomes. I do agree, though, with the texter. I do think people are absolutely misunderstanding the point. Or they're valuing the wrong things. Like, why do you care what's best for Brian Callahan's job security? Because people are like, no way Callahan on the hot seat is going to play Brandon Allen. I'm like, man. I'm like, if I'm Brinker and Borgonzi and I'm sitting there and I'm saying, hey, we think that Cam's not ready. Let's play the other guy. And the coach says, well, I want to play Cam because I'm on the hot seat. You fire the coach. 615-737-1025. There was something last night I was unprepared for. I saw it. I lost my mind. We'll get to it next. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. You know those are my guys. Hiller takes great care of my home. They can do the exact same for you. Have you ever called a plumber, an electrician, or an HVAC tech and felt like they were trying to sell you something that you absolutely didn't need? I mean, I think I get that all the time. If a deal sounds too good to be true, like a $99 club membership or a $29 tune-up, it is. The reality is they're going to try to find something to fix so they can cover their costs for the quote-unquote discounted club memberships. Unlike the other guys, Hiller never tries to offer a deal to trick you or sell you something that you do not need. In fact, Hiller's coming to my home next week. I've ordered a mini split. The mini split's going to get here. Hiller's going to come out. They're going to figure out exactly how to install it. Then they're going to install it. Then it's going to be done, and I'm never going to have to worry about it again. That's why I love Hiller. I never worry about it again. You hear me talking about my friends at Hiller all the time, but see, this is why I trust them in my home. So do like I did. Schedule online at happyhiller.com. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Proud supporters, the Preds of Vols and Vandy. Hiller, call that face truck today. Okay, we got to end the show on a funny note. I don't know if this will be funny on the radio or not, but last night I was just looking at my phone and I was screwing around with the For You tab on Twitter, and I saw, I think it was actually Clay Travis who posted it, but I saw a video of something that happened in a WNBA game. Jake, have you seen this?
I actually have not.
So a girl in a WNBA game, a woman, is coming off of a screen. And as she's coming off of a screen, her wig falls off her head and is laying there on the court. They have to stop play so the woman can grab her wig, run to the locker room, put her wig back on her head, and then come back out. And the craziest part, like, I saw the video. Like, she's, again, coming off of a screen. And you know how it is. You get caught up in a screen, you're trying to fight through it, and her hair just falls off, and it's like, oh, my God, she takes it, runs with it. So I saw that. I started laughing uncontrollably at this woman in the WNBA losing her wig in the middle of the game. Like, I just thought that was funny. So then somebody told me, like, yo, listen to the broadcast and listen to how afraid the broadcast is to actually mention this woman losing her wig and what transpired after she lost the wig. So here's the first cut, which is the TV play-by-play. I don't even know who's calling the game. I don't know what channel. I don't know what teams. But here's the first, here's the play-by-play call of the woman losing her wig during the WNBA game.
And it bounced around a lot, but at the end, it went through the rim. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. She's going to go head to the back. Oh, no.
Timeout called for Copper to deal with the malfunction.
Just say it. They're sitting there being like, oh no, her wig came off in the middle of the game, and now she's running down to the locker room to go put her wig back on her head. We can say it. The announcers are like, oh no, let's not mention it. Like, it wasn't like Granny got run over. I mean, her wig came off. Even my mom today was like, why would you wear a wig and play basketball? She's a fair point. Number two, as they're getting ready to play, because again, in the WNBA, apparently we have to call timeout, because her wig fell off. So then number two, this cut is what apparently is transpiring and why we can't get the game back underway.
Now they have an issue with a fan as the officials, as Phoenix's bench had an issue. They're having Alyssa Thomas and Nate Tibbetts point out which fan it is so that security here at Care First Arena can have that dealt with.
Okay, so now we're kicking a fan out because of something that happened regarding this wig incident, right? Now, this may be hard to hear, so I want you to kind of maybe turn the radio up a little bit. I'll talk a little bit lower. So just turn it up just a little bit. And I want you to hear, you can hear the referee talking to security. And the referee is explaining what happened to security for this fan that they have to kick out because this woman's wig fell off.
As you can see,
okay, Jake, I want to play this one more time. Listen very carefully, and you can hear the referee go, the player said that they made fun of her for her wig falling on the floor.
as you can see,
I mean, I'm sorry. Like, your wig fell off.
I think the security guard says they made fun of her for the situation on the floor.
Situation on the floor. That's what the referee told the security guard. I'm sorry. If you can't make fun of somebody at a sports game, then we need to just cancel sports. The WNBA, and I am a supporter of the WNBA. I think a lot of people don't understand the money the WNBA is making now, the money the WNBA is about to make, and it's a real business. But grow a freaking pair. Well, I probably shouldn't say that, but I mean, get some gumption. Like, grow up. Your wig came off. It's funny. We should laugh about it. It's okay. But instead, the WNBA has to kick a fan out because they made fun of someone for her wig falling off. Oh, it's crazy. Just crazy. That's it for us. Stillman & Company. We'll see you tomorrow.